Welcome everybody. Actually, first of all, let me introduce myself. I am Orijit Sinha, Assistant Professor of Kultigri Teachers Training Institute of Higher Studies. And today, I enter the webinar. I am hosting the entire of the webinar, and all of you know that our webinar based on education, emerging issues, challenges, and policy perspectives. And first of all, I pleased to announce some name. Actually, I would like to say a little earlier the prominent delegates, distinguished personalities assembled here today in this webinar, like Dr. Abhijit Roy Chaudhary sir, Honorable Inspector of Colleges, Vidyasagar University, and renowned Professor Dr. Vishnu Padananda, Professor in Education, Jadavpur University, Jadavpur, West Bengal. And we get also renowned resource person, Dr. Khaleda Gani Dutt, Assistant Professor, Department of Special Education, Stockholm University, Sweden, and renowned resource person, Dr. Parthita Vishwas, ma'am, Head, Department of Education, School of Education, Adamas University, Adamas Knowledge City, West Bengal, and also Dr. Amulya Kumar Acharya, Associate Professor and HOD, PG Department of Education, Fakir Mohan University, Odisha, India, and last but not the least, our respected Secretary Sir, Mr. Mithun Barik Sir. And I congratulate to all the delegates, speakers, audience, viewers, students, and the participants here assembled today's webinar. Actually, we know we are passing through a very pandemic situation under COVID-19, but we do not stop, or yet we should not panic it. So we always almost trying to provide notes, online classes, as well as we create some cultural activities. And also all of you know that we organized some webinar in this period. And recently, a few days ago, we arranged an international webinar, 17 July 2020. And now today, we also arrange this webinar about inclusive education, emerging issues, challenges, and policy perspectives. So thank you all and stay tuned. Now I directly going to the main part of this webinar, and now we are going to start our webinar through a song along with a dance. So I would like to request our assistant professor, Ms. Sulabna Chakraborty and Mrs. Soheli Vera Khan to present their inaugural performances. Thank you. Sorry, please stay with us. There are a technical problem and we are coming back soon. Please stay with us. We are coming back soon as a technical problem occurred here. So we are apologize for this, and now we are going to start again. Thank you. Now we witness the great performance from our assistant professor, Ms. Sulabna Chakraborty, Mrs. Shaheli Bela Khan, Mr. Amit Mondol, and the musicians Sankhadip Jana, Robida, and many more. So please stay tuned with us and witness the great performance, the inaugural performance. Today, we assembled here for the webinar entitled Inclusive Education, Emerging Issues, Challenges, and Policy Perspectives. And we almost started our webinar, and now the time of inaugural performances. And there are short technical issues. Now we are going to start our webinar with these inaugural performances. Thank you. Thank you. A heartfelt thanks to our assistant professors, colleagues, Ms. Shulabna Chakraborty, Mrs. Soheli Bera Khan, Mr. Amit Mondol, and musicians all, Shankhadeep and others. We just listening and witnessing the very much nice inaugural performances, and now we would like to request Dr. Abhijit Roy Chaudhary, Honorable Inspector of Colleges, Vidyasagar University, for delivering the welcome addresses. Sir, Dr. Abhijit Roy Chaudhary, sir, for inaugural speech welcome address. Today's webinar, Inclusive Education, Emerging Issues, Challenges and Policy Perspectives. Now, I would like to request Dr. Abhijit Roy Chaudhary, sir, Honorable Inspector of Colleges, Vidyasagar University, for delivering the welcome addresses. Sir, are you here? Dr. Abhijit Roy Chaudhary, sir. Now, we would like to request, sir, please delivering the address note, welcome address, the inaugural speech, as we almost completed the first part of inaugural performance by our assistant professors, our colleagues of DC Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education. And I again said that today's webinar entitled Inclusive Education, Emerging Issues, Colleagues, Challenges and Policy Perspectives, and here assembled the very distinguished personalities gathered here. So I congratulated to all the delegates, speakers, professors, research scholars, audiences. And now I again request, actually, okay, now again I would like to request Dr. Abhijit Roy Chaudhary, sir, Honorable Inspector of Colleges, Vidyasagar University, for delivering his address note, inaugural speeches.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible.
Achha, achha. Sorry, there is some technical snags on my part.
Okay, okay,
So
sir.
I am a bit late to join.
Okay, sir. No problem, sir.
Okay.
Continue, sir.
Okay. Dear colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen who are present here, I sincerely welcome you all to this one-day international webinar entitled as Inclusive Education, Emerging Issues, Challenges and Policy Perspectives, jointly organized by the Department of Education, Gaurav Gui Memorial College and Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education. It's a privilege to address this august gathering on this imminent issue that is raging the current educational environment. Now we are passing on through a pandemic situation, which made this this webinar most important and significant too. Now, one of the greatest problems the world is facing today is the growing number of persons who are excluded from the meaningful partnership in the economic, social, political, and cultural life of their communities. Such a society is neither efficient nor safe. Inclusive education can be seen as a stepping stone for a future inclusive society, and it is a process of addressing and responding to the diverse needs of all children, youth, and adults through increasing participation in learning, cultures, and communities, and reducing the exclusion within and from education. The growing in public awareness, the achievement in the technological advancement, and the improved legislation in some countries have opened the way for better provision of education to children with disabilities. The integration of students with disabilities into regular educational setting as regular class, but numerous factors continue to affect and regulate the development of inclusive education in India, my country. A limited understanding of the concept disability, negative attitudes towards persons with disabilities, and a hardened resistance social inclusion. It is only happening in the sections of the society in the lower socio-economic strata. Research hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Social inclusion it is only happening in the section of the society. In the lower socio-economic strata, research studies have revealed that there is a greater acceptance of persons with disabilities with minimum expectation. And the third one is the cognitive inclusion. The educational institutions try out cognitive inclusion by allowing the children with special educational needs to study in general classrooms with non-disabled children. The role of teachers in inclusive education is very significant. It is a fact that regular schools and regular classroom environment often fails to accommodate the educational needs of many students, especially individuals with disability. The role of teacher in inclusive education is very crucial. The teacher have the ability to solve problems and take the advantage of children's individual interests and use their internal motivation for developing needed skills. He or she has the ability to make appropriate situations for each student regardless of the student capability. And he or she has the ability to determine how to modify assignments for the student and how to design classroom activities. This teaching skill can be applied not just as the elementary or secondary level, but at the college level too. Now, there are some challenges in the inclusive education. The explosion in growth of private educational institutions in recent years in India, in both urban and rural areas, is seen by many to be a result of dissatisfaction with poor quality education provision in government educational institutions. However, the private schools which have been voluntarily implementing inclusive education are mostly found in urban areas, demonstrating the geographical inequalities so prevalent in the Indian context. In addition to these private schools require paying the fees, this inclusive education is not accessible to all, and so somewhat exclusive, although some admit bright children from deprived background as a charitable gesture. The challenges of inclusive education are to meet the special needs of all children with and without disability. Inclusive education is not a soft process. It requires a lot of struggle and commitment to to overcome all the types of barriers, mainly attitudinal and social. To conclude, I will say inclusion of education with special education needs has become a matter of priority to many countries around the world. It is no doubt that reforms towards inclusion of children with diverse needs continues across the globe. The implementation of inclusive education requires dedication and willingness on part of all stakeholders, especially educators. Every educator must be aware of the concept of the inclusion. Sensitization towards inclusion is the need of the hour. Inclusion of children with special needs is essentially the responsibility of the regular education system. Yet, special education professionals, parents of children with special needs, as well as parents of non disabled peer groups, students without disabilities, and community as a whole have to be empowered for inclusive education to be successful. Further, there is a need of barrier-free environment and suitable transport to reach to school. Above all, sensitization of administrators, adaptations in curriculum, evaluation procedures, and teacher preparation to enhance their competencies in teaching children with special needs. To that, I conclude my inaugural speech and wholeheartedly wish this webinar a grand success. Now we are passing through this pandemic area, and this also opened up an area of very vulnerable situation to include one and all. It's an opportunity too, so that we can include one and all to the mainstream of education, those who are deprived mainly and those who are privileged too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We are really pleased. A heartfelt thanks to Dr. Abhijit Roy Chaudhary, sir, Honorable Inspector of Colleges, Vidyasagar University. Sir, I have a request to you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, actually,
Yes.
I have a request to you. Please kindly inaugurate our college magazine, DC Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education's college magazine, annual magazine BAC, entitled BAC, the second edition. So please inaugurate it. So I pleased to announce that now we have already listened to the inaugural speeches. This time our respected speaker will publish the BAC magazine and also spare a few lines for our these moments. Magazine publishing moments.
Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education, which was once an affiliated institute of our university. Now it has been shifted its affiliation to some other university. Still, we have a very long-standing relationship with this teaching institution. I am very pleased to inaugurate their college magazine that is entitled, that is named BARK, which means speech. May this magazine gives an illumination of speech to all. The inclusive education, it is very inclusive education. It is very apt on this situation in this time to release this college magazine. I think it will be very a precious collection for all. Thank you. I am pleased to inaugurate it.
Thank you so much, sir. And we now inaugurate and published our college magazine entitled BAC, the second edition, by the hand of our Honorable Inaugurator, Dr. Abhijit Roy Chaudhary, sir, Honorable Inspector of Colleges, Vidyasagar University. Thank you so much, sir. Now, we directly enter into the second part, and now I would like to request our renowned professor, Dr. Vishnu Padananda sir, professor in education, Jadavpur University, Jadavpur, West Bengal, for keynote addresses. delivering the keynote addresses. Please, Dr. Vishnu Padananda sir.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Am
sir.
I
Yes, sir.
visible? Visible?
No, sir.
Not visible. Then
No, sir.
now am I visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are
Yes, sir.
visible.
Okay.
You are visible
Okay.
and audible.
Okay. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Net connection is not so good today because of the cloudy environment. Maybe there are some problems. Respected principal, Gaurav Gui Memorial College, Chandrakona Road, Midnapur West. Respected Mithun Barik, Secretary of both Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education, Midnapur West, and Kultikri Teacher Training Institute of Higher Education, Kultikri. Principal of Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education and Kultikri Teacher Training Institute of Higher Education. He is also respectable. My respected colleague Pankaj and respected IC of Vidyasagar University, all the faculties of these three colleges, the audience, research scholars, teachers from different college, university and schools, as well as my most dearest students. Today, these three institutions, they jointly organizing a very sensitive on a very sensitive topic, that is the inclusive education emerging issues, challenges and policy perspectives. The area is so large that it is quite impossible to discuss the matter within a few minutes or within a few hours. Yet I'll try to my best. First concept of inclusion. Maybe in education, may not be in education, was first emerged from India and Indian subcontinent during the Vedic period. I am proud to utter this sentence because I am also Indian. And being Indian, I am proud that in the Vedic period, the first concept of inclusion, that is the education, enrollment, quality education, retention of even the challenged with the non-challenged. That is the first concept of educational institution. First concept of social inclusion, which is the ultimate goal of any kind of inclusive program, is the social inclusion. I will discuss later. And this concept of social inclusion was also first established in India. And that was again not only in the Vedic period, but in the epic era, that is during the Ramayana and Mahabharata. As you have heard the story of Ashtavakra Rishi. Ashtavakra was physically challenged. According to the present concept, he was severely cerebral palsy. মস্তিষ্ক পক্ষাঘাতে তিনি আক্রান্ত ছিলেন। And he acquired disability before his birth. He possesses a disability. I will not discuss about the story of Ashtavakra during the Vedic period, but in spite of his severe disability, he became the Rishi as he learned all the Vedas and even the Upanishads in spite of his severe disability. And that period of India accept that Ashtavakra is a Rishi. Ashtavakra ekjon Satyadrashta. He is a truth seeker and therefore he is a Rishi. So the society also accept him. And in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, so many examples are there. So many examples. But the concept was damaged to some extent during the Buddhistic period, when Buddha himself told that no disabled, no physically or intellectually challenged, no infectious diseased individual can enter in the Mahavihars for education, for enlightenment, for empowerment, for upliftment, and finally for salvation. সুতরাং এদের সকলের জন্য, those who are the challenged, জন্য, those who are the সংক্রামক ব্যাধি প্রত্যেকের জন্য, there was no scope. The doors were closed forever and ever for this group of people, because according to Buddha, the challenged and the infected people will not be able to seek the salvation. এদের দ্বারা মুক্তি অর্জন করা কোনোদিনই সম্ভব নয়। এই ছিল ভগবান বুদ্ধের, তথাগতের তার বক্তব্য। So the first social exclusion, সামাজিকভাবে পৃথকীভবন, সামাজিকভাবে বিচ্ছিন্নকরণের প্রথম ধারণা established হয় during the Buddhistic period. This concept was first established during the Buddhistic period, the concept of social exclusion. In the modern era, years and years, era after era gone, only in 1974, first the concept of social exclusion was established by René Lenoir. তিনি প্রথম বললেন সামাজিক বর্জনের কথা, এই শব্দটার কথা, সোশ্যাল ইনক্লুশনের কথা। In 1974, but our Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, what he told, what he wrote that আমরা সবাই রাজা আমাদের এই রাজার রাজত্বে, নইলে মোদের রাজার সনে মিলব কি সত্যে, আমরা in the Upanishad, what we uttered, Aje dhamani divyang mahantang aditya viditva timritumeti nanyah pantha vidyate ayanayo. So, during the Vedic period, in a mantra, it was chanted that, it was first uttered that we all people living in the world, we are the sons and daughters of only one Father, only one Creator, that is the Supreme Creator or Brahma. Amra সকলেই সেই ব্রহ্মের সন্তান। And therefore there is no differentiation. There is no question of social exclusion. অতএব কিসের উপর ভিত্তি করে আমরা পৃথক করব, আমরা বিচ্ছিন্ন করব, আমরা and that concept was 1975 by the federal government of America through the public education for all, and the first start of all children, it shapes ability with spoken. বাঙালি ছেলে মেয়েদের জন্য, ভাই বোনদের জন্য যারা ভালো ইংরেজি বোঝেন না তাদের জন্য জাতি, ধর্ম, বর্ণ, লিঙ্গ, ক্ষমতা, অক্ষমতা, উপজাতি ও বৈশিষ্ট্য, ভাষাগত চরিত্র নির্বিশেষে সমস্ত শিশুকে শিক্ষা দান করতে হবে। Then who will taught them? It is the responsibility of all the teachers from KG to একেবারে PG, অর্থাৎ নিম্ন শ্রেণী থেকে উচ্চতর শ্রেণী পর্যন্ত সমস্ত শিশুকে জাতি, ধর্ম, বর্ণ, লিঙ্গ, ক্ষমতা, অক্ষমতা, উপজাতীয় বৈশিষ্ট্য, ভাষাগত চরিত্র নির্বিশেষে সমস্ত শিশুকে শিক্ষা দান করতে হবে। And this is the quality of education. In 1975, Public Law 142, Public Law 94/124, সেখানে এই কথাটা বলা হলো। So, the federal government of America established that if you are unable to teach a single child in your educational setup, it may be due to caste, due to color, due to sex, due to ability, due to disability, or due to ethnic character, even due to different language spoken by the child. The child don't know English like all the other Americans. The child is from the scheduled tribe area. He or she is the tribal. Then you, the concerned teacher of school, college, and university, it is your honest responsibility. It is your most sincere responsibility to educate everybody and to provide quality education. Not only education, not only just completion of the curriculum or completion of the syllabus or completion of the content of the study material within a particular time. This is not the ultimate goal of any kind of teacher, any kind of teacher. And if you are unable to teach a single child, then you must leave the educational institution. কি ভয়ানক কথা উচ্চারণ করলেন তা। If you are unable to teach a single child in your classroom, whatever it may be the causative factor, whatever it may be the problem of the baby, whatever it may be your personal problem, you are the most unable teacher to teach in the modern setup, in the educational setup. In 1975. In 1994, Salman Ka conference was there by UNESCO. In Salman Ka conference, no, before that, in 1990, there was Jumping World Declaration. In that declaration, Government of India was one of the signatories. What was the major concept? The major concept was education for all. এই যে স্লোগানটা প্রতিটি স্কুলের সামনে আজকে আপনারা দেখতে পাচ্ছেন, প্রাইমারি টু বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়, যে সকলের জন্য শিক্ষা, সকলের জন্য স্বাস্থ্য, এডুকেশন ফর অল, হেলথ for all. This concept was first coined in 1990 in the Johnson World Declaration. সবাইকে শিক্ষা দিতে হবে। We are bound, we are compared, maybe the upper caste, maybe the lower caste, maybe the poor, maybe the rich, maybe the brilliant, maybe the most dull student, like intellectually challenged student, maybe the visually normal, visually challenged, hearing and speech normal, hearing and speech challenged, whatever it may be the quality of the learner. In 1995, there was Salamanca conference in Spain, and government of India was one of the signatory in that conference, where 200 countries signed in that documentary paper, Salamanca Conference Act. They established the Salamanca Conference Act in 1994. And they told that all the challenged learner, all the disabled learner, maybe physically disabled, maybe intellectually disabled, সে বৌদ্ধিক প্রতিস্পর্ধী কিংবা শারীরিক প্রতিস্পর্ধী, whatever it may be the problem of the baby, he will be educated in the mainstream class. And it is the honest responsibility, sacred responsibility of all the faculties of the school, college and university to educate each and every child. ওই কি হবে না হবে ভাবা যাবে না, আমাদেরকে পড়াতে হবে। প্রশ্ন করবেন মনে মনে, আমি জানি আমার সামনে সাহস করে প্রশ্ন কেউ রাখবেন না, প্রশ্ন করবেন মনে মনে, how to teach a visually impaired child in my regular classroom where more than 150 learners are present in the class, how to teach a speech and hearing impaired child, how to tackle an intellectually impaired child or cerebral palsy or autistic child. My very sincere submission is that, are you prepared yourself to be a teacher or you are a cheater? If you are a teacher, you can teach everybody. Why you don't prepare yourself regularly? Why you are not taking training from all the national institutes present in India, university, or from IGNU? Why you are not trained? So you must be trained. আপনাকে প্রশিক্ষণ নিতেই হবে। I got a service in a school after completion of B.Ed or M.Ed, or in college or university, and in classes in the college, in the university, in my school. A good number of challenged learners are present. A good number of children from the first generation learners. তারা উপস্থিত। আপনি জানেন না কথা বলতে, আপনি জানেন না কি রকম ভাষা ব্যবহার করতে হবে, আপনি জানেন না দৃষ্টিহীনদের জন্য ব্রেল পদ্ধতিকে আপনাকে গ্রহণ করতে হবে, আপনাকে অ্যাবাকাস, টেলর ফ্রেম, জিওমেট্রিক্যাল বোর্ড ব্যবহার করতে আপনাকে জানতে হবে। আপনি জানেন না যে আপনার লেকচার চলবে, বাট একই সময়ে আপনার সাইন ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ চলবে, আপনার সেই ধারণাটাই নেই। আপনি জানেন না দোজ ফর দ্য ইন্টেলেকচুয়ালি চ্যালেঞ্জ, তাদেরকে ফার্স্ট রোতে রাখতে হবে অথবা আমার টেবিলের কাছে একেবারে তাদেরকে বসিয়ে নিতে হবে। আপনি জানেন না দৃষ্টিহীন ক্লাসে আছে, তাই আমি বোর্ডে যখন লিখছি, when I am in board doing board work, then I continuously speak. আমি যা লিখছি তার প্রত্যেকটি কথা সুস্পষ্টভাবে পিছন দিকে ফিরে এসে ঘুরে আবার আমি বলছি, because visually challenged learners are present in my class. So we the teachers, we are not prepared to be a teacher. Most amongst us We don't get a service in any other sector, and therefore we came to the school. And if it school, college, or university, and if it is, will not be able to teach all the learners in the mainstream class in the inclusive setup. Here is the problem. And in 1994, there was Salman Ka conference. Just after completion of Salman Ka conference, Government of India called one meeting for inclusive education, whether we, all the teachers from the field of special education, we are interested or not to start the inclusive education program in our country. And a good number of faculties, college, universities, research scholars, special educators, experts in the field of rehabilitation science, they all joined in the Educational Technology Hall of NCERT, New Delhi in 1994 in the last week of May. Sorry, in the last week of June. And I myself was one of them. I was also asked by NCERT and I joined there at that period. Whether special education, inclusive education program, I myself was in favor of inclusive education. I stand up and I told there. I said there, yes sir, I am in favor of inclusive education because special education creates social exclusion. I am trained in the field of visual impairment, in the field of mental retardation, in the field of, to some extent, in the field of hearing impairment. I am also trained in the field of general teacher education program. And year after year, I dropped my career to prepare myself as a teacher. That if all different categories of challenged children present in my class to tackle them. Before that, no, there was no such so the first concept of inclusion was established in the Educational Technology Hall of NCERT, New Delhi, perhaps in the first or second day of July 1994. In 1995, there was PWD Act, where it was told that, it was written that zero rejection policy. Everybody perhaps know it. Jodi karu jana na thake, please go through the PWD Act, zero rejection policy. In Public Law 9442 in 1975 by the federal government of America, they wrote by which to deny the entry of at least educational setup. কোনো একটিও শিশুকে আপনি আপনার শিক্ষা প্রতিষ্ঠানে বা দেবীর আরাধনায় আসার ক্ষেত্রে বাধা সৃষ্টি করতে পারেন, আপনার হাতে নেই। So the first concept of inclusion was in India and again established in India in 1995 through the Persons with Disabilities Act. Why we are in favor of exclusion, বর্জন কেন আমরা চেয়েছিলাম? না, আমরা বর্জন চেয়েছিলাম, নাম্বার ওয়ান, exclusion due to disciplinary action. ওই চ্যালেঞ্জদেরকে ক্লাসের মধ্যে রাখলে একটা বিশৃঙ্খলা তৈরি হবে। The teacher is not an expert teacher to tackle the class, to manage the class, And teacher answered that there will be problem to manage the class. আমি প্রমাণ করেছি আমার জীবন দিয়ে 300 primary school teachers, 300 high school teachers, they are present in my lecture series for 5 days, 6 days. And I am the only speaker for 6 hours, for 6 consecutive days. আমি প্রমাণ দিয়ে দেখিয়েছি 300 জন শিক্ষক শিক্ষিকার মধ্যে একজনও একটু অন্যমনস্ক হলে চোখ এদিক ওদিক করলে ঘাটটা ঘোরালে আমার চোখ ওখানে আটকে যাচ্ছে। আমি কিন্তু বলছি না ইউ স্ট্যান্ড আপ, আমার চোখ দিয়ে আমি বুঝিয়ে দিচ্ছি। অতএব here is the quality of the teacher. Every teacher must not only know to throw the words, to throw the tone, to use the tone, but at the same time to maintain the eye contact. Eye to eye contact skill in 90-degree angle. আমি জোর গলায় বলছি, most of the teachers they are not aware about the fact that how to tackle the eye to eye contact skill between the teacher and the student. কি করে রক্ষা করতে হয়। আর আপনার চোখে চোখ রেখে কোন ছাত্র দুষ্টুমি করবে, অন্যদিকে সরে যাবে, এটা হতে পারে না। তার মানে you are not devoted in the present day lecture. You are not prepared for the present day class. You don't think about the today's lecture, where to start and where to end, and how to proceed from starting point to end point. And most of the teachers, they are not preparing themselves regularly before entering the class. If I am not prepared for today's lecture, for class 5 standard or 4 or 3 or UG or PG, I will not enter in the class. I may be present there in the institution, but I must not be present in the class because I am a teacher and I am not a cheater. I am responsible to teach. I am not responsible to cheat. If I can cheat, then there is no place for me in the educational institutions. অনেকে শুনতে খারাপ লাগবে আমি জানি। The second point is we exclude due to some social and economic cause. Social cause, ও নিচু জাতের ছেলে বা মেয়ে, ওর সঙ্গে স্পর্শ লেগে যাবে, ওর টাকা নেই, ও পাবলিক স্কুলে যেতে পারবে না, ও প্রাইভেট স্কুলে যেতে পারবে না, ও ইংলিশ মিডিয়াম স্কুলে যেতে পারবে না, ও প্রাইভেট বিএড কলেজে এন্ট্রি পাবে না বিকজ অফ দ্য lacks of money. অতএব ওকে আমি নেব না। How it becomes possible? This is one educational institution and their education, their enrollment, their entry is restricted. How it becomes possible? Then why this educational institution? This is only for business? This is only for income? তাহলে then what is the importance of educational business? So many other business spots are there throughout the world. So business people, business persons, those who are truly interested only to earn money, they can go elsewhere, not in the educational setup, and not to such a sacred activity, sacred concept where we are preparing our future citizens, my child, your child, and the child of my enemy. আমি সকলের সন্তানকে শিশুকে সেখানে আমি তৈরি করছি, সেই দায়বদ্ধতা নিয়ে আমি সেখানে গিয়ে দাঁড়িয়েছি। And the third one is the special needs of child. The child is a disabled, he has special need. You think the child is not a disabled, the child is socially disabled, the child is educationally disabled. What to answer? The child is culturally disabled. What to answer? The child is economically disabled. What to answer? আপনি আমাকে কি উত্তর দেবেন বলুন? আমরা যদি এইভাবে segregate করতে থাকি, separate করতে থাকি, আমরা কোনদিন inclusive setup, we will not be able to establish institution. And the fourth point is quality of education, the quality of educational institution, your platform child, they will follow the quality of my teaching in the educational setup, the quality of curriculum, what we follow for our educational setup. This again should not be. We must prepare my teaching program for all the different categories of children present in the educational setup. Those who will follow the language of Bankim literature, one group. Those who will follow the language of Tagore literature, second group. Those who will follow the language of Sarat Chandra literature, third group. And those who will follow the literature of, or the language of literature of Tara Shankar Bandyopadhyay, Rana Banglar Bhasha. Ki bolben? So I am responsible to teach the learners to utter every sentence in at least in 4 different styles, if not more than that. If I can enter it, if I can utter it, then what's the problem? Whatever it may be, the language status, language stability of each and every child. Maybe somebody amongst you may raise a question. If somebody become interested to learn in the style of Padma Nadhir Majhir Lekhak Manik Bandyopadhyay, so much psychological sentences, so much psychological feeling. My answer is that yet I am ready for it. Yet I am ready for it. I am ready even for the intellectually challenged of mild category, having no other behavioral problem, having no other problem like they are not autistic or cerebral palsy. I am ready to teach the CP child without any intellectual impairment. I am ready to teach the high-functioning autistic child even in the mainstream classroom. I must prepare myself if I am unable to teach. All the B.Ed college teachers, DLED college teachers, M.Ed department teachers, they are teaching the creative and inclusive school in education without a clear idea, without a clear concept about what is inclusion. Never, never. Inclusion does not mean only enrollment, retention, and minimum level of quality achievement of the challenge with the non-challenge. This is not true inclusion. If anybody say, then it is full of error. He or she has no idea about inclusion. Inclusion means enrollment, retention, and minimum level of quality achievement of all the learners, irrespective of caste, color, creed, ability, disability, ethnic character, language spoken, and gender. Not the sex. In the modern concept, the term sex is not acceptable. Gender. Why? Because sexually, from hormonal point of view, from anatomical point of view, from human physiological point of view, I am a student of biology, I know all these different things. Point of view, we know that there are 2 types of sex, male or female. But according to the Supreme Court order, those who are the transgender, those who are the third gender, sir, what about them? What is their sex? They are the others. But in sex concept, there is no others. In biology, There is no others. The sex concept is biological concept, either the male or the female. The gender concept is sociological concept. All the teachers must know the meaning of sage of each and every word. Why we are using the term gender? Because the third gender peoples are there. And in every school, college and universities, in every educational setup, such children may be present and every possibility of presence of such type of children. So, we must be very much clear about the concept. Then, what is inclusion? For today, hours after hours, our expert faculties, they will come from different parts of the world and will discuss about what inclusion is. But my teacher, my most revered teacher, one of the revered teacher, Paris Chandra Vishwas, retired to make it clear what does inclusion? The inclusion established up 9 pillars. নখানা স্তম্ভের উপর দাঁড়িয়ে আছে একই ভবন বা ইংরেজিতে ইনক্লুশন শব্দটি INCLUSION. I means involvement of everybody. সুতোর মিস্ত্রি, চামার, জুতোর মিস্ত্রি, মুচি, হাড়ি, ডোম কে নেই সেখানে। ফার্মার, প্রত্যেকের ইনভলভমেন্ট, উইদাউট দ্য ইনভলভমেন্ট অফ ইচ অ্যান্ড এভরি পিপল অফ দ্য সোসাইটি, inclusion becomes possible. If some people is not interested to take part in inclusion program, then inclusion will fail. It may be the educational inclusion, it may be the social inclusion. N means no discrimination. পৃথক করা যাবে না, বর্জন করা যাবে না, আলাদা করা যাবে না। জাতি, ধর্ম, বর্ণ, লিঙ্গ, ক্ষমতা, অক্ষমতা, উপজাতীয় বৈশিষ্ট্য, ভাষা, কোনো কিছুর নিরিখে you will not be able to segregate among the children. ছেলে মেয়েদের মধ্যে ফারাক করবেন না। আপনি ফারাক করেন আপনার ছেলে এবং মেয়ের মধ্যে, আপনি ফারাক করেন আপনার বুদ্ধিদীপ্ত সন্তান এবং স্বল্প বুদ্ধির সন্তানের মধ্যে, আপনি ফারাক করেন আপনার সুন্দর দেখতে ফর্সা ছেলের সঙ্গে অসুন্দর কুচকুচে কালো আপনার মেয়েকে। উত্তর এক কথায়, if you are the parents, you will never exclude, you will never segregate your child, you will never be able to differentiate between your boy and your girl, your son and your daughter, because your only porichoy. I am a father, maybe you are a mother. সন্তান যেই মুহূর্তে জন্মগ্রহণ করলো তারপর থেকে লোকে ভুলে গেল আমার নাম বিষ্ণুপদনন্দ, লোকে বলতে শুরু করলো বাবনুর বাবা, ইমনের বাবা। পাড়াতে আমার নামটাই হারিয়ে গেল, আমার মিসেসের নাম সবাই হারিয়ে ফেললো, হারিয়ে ফেলে বলল কি অমুকের মা, তমুকের মা। What does it mean? What it established from our society? বলেনি ওই কুচকুচে কালো রঙের মেয়েটার মা, বলেনি ওই কালো কুৎসিত দেখতে মেয়েটির মা, বলেনি ওই সাদা ফর্সা দেখতে ছেলেটির বাবা। আমার পরিচয় আমার সন্তানের নামে, আমার পরিচয় আমার সন্তানের কোথায় ত্রুটি রয়েছে তার উপর নয়। Then why you the teachers, you the political leaders, you the administrators making segregate between the people, between the learners, between the students on the basis of some adjectives, that is the disabled child or non-disabled child. poor child or rich child. What is poor? What is rich? What is disabled? What is non-disabled? Whether it is noun form, whether it is pronoun form, বলতে হচ্ছে আজকে দিনে এটা আমার অত্যন্ত লজ্জা। It's same to me, even to all the college and university teachers. এটা লজ্জা। আমরা ব্যবহার করছি disabled child, আমরা ব্যবহার করছি এখনো handicapped child, আমরা ব্যবহার করতে পারছি না a child with visual impairment, a child with hearing impairment, a child with speech problem, a child with locomotor disability, a child with intellect, not intellectual child, but a child with intellect. Not a red colored flower, but a flower whose color is red. ফুল কষ্ট পায় না, বোধ হয় জগদীশচন্দ্র থাকলে হয়তো বলতেন, আচার্য জগদীশচন্দ্র আমার অত্যন্ত প্রণম্য ব্যক্তি, আমাদের সকলের, তিনি হয়তো বলতেন ফুল কষ্ট পায়। লাল ফুল বললে, কালো ফুল বললে, সাদা ফুল বললে, কারণ সেটি ফুল, তারপরে তার রং, আগে সেটি একটি নাউন কিংবা প্রোনাউন, তারপরে তার অ্যাডজেক্টিভ। আর আমরা আগে এই অ্যাডজেক্টিভ কে ব্যবহার করলাম। আমরা কি বললাম ক্লাসে? অপদার্থ ছাত্র। ক্যান উই স্পিক ইন দিস লাইন? আমি বলতে পারি ছাত্রটি অপদার্থ, ছাত্রীটি অপদার্থ, বাট নট অপদার্থ ছাত্র বা ছাত্রী। অ্যাডজেক্টিভ কে সামনে এস্টাবলিশ করতে পারি না, না, না। যদি করি কি হবে? Will break, will damage the total concept of inclusive education, which is not only the concept, it is the philosophy. In 1994, after Salmanka conference, this concept was established throughout the world, and this is 2020. মাঝখানে 26টা বছর প্রায় চলে গেল, প্রায় 25 বছর সামথিং। এবং এই 25 বছরে সারা পৃথিবীর কোন প্রান্ত থেকে কোন গবেষণা, neither the qualitative research nor the quantitative research has established that the concept of, the philosophy of, the approach of inclusive education is full of error, that it is not possible to teach each and every child in the mainstream classroom. So he means no discrimination, she means collaboration. A collaborative effort is essential. The headmaster must be well versed about what is inclusion. The head teachers, the principals of the college, the vice chancellor, registrar, head of the department, deans of the university must be sensitized. আমি বলিনি must be aware. অ্যাওয়ারনেসে কিছু যায় আসে না। এই ডান কান দিয়ে আমি ঢুকিয়ে দিচ্ছি, আপনাদের বাম কান দিয়ে বেরিয়ে যাচ্ছে। বাড়ি গিয়েই বলবেন দূর ফালতু সব কথাবার্তা। সেন্সিটাইজেশন, যা রক্তের সঙ্গে মিশে যাবে, যা শরীরের রক্তের স্রোতের মধ্যে কন্টিনিউয়াসলি বইতে থাকবে, আঘাত হানতে থাকবে, ধাক্কা মারতে থাকবে। কি ধাক্কা? ইনক্লুশন, ইনক্লুশন, ইনক্লুশন। রবীন্দ্রনাথের মতো করে বলতে থাকবেন, আমরা সবাই রাজা, আমরা সবাই একই ব্রহ্মের সন্তান, একই ব্রহ্ম থেকে আমাদের সৃষ্টি, অন্য কোন জায়গা থেকে আমাদের সৃষ্টি আসেনি। So well means leveling. You can't level that you are a disabled one. এই যখন আপনারা ডিসেবলড বলছেন, আমি এতক্ষণ ডিসেবলড বলেছি আপনাদের কানে মধু দেওয়ার জন্য। যদি একবারও বলে ফেলেন হ্যান্ডিক্যাপ, তাহলে তো সর্বনাশ, আমি তো অগ্নি শর্মা হয়ে উঠবো, বিষ্ণু শর্মার মতো, বিষ্ণুপদ নন্দ আর থাকবো না, বিষ্ণু শর্মা হয়ে যাব। Even you can't use the term disabled, and therefore all the national institutions in India, they have changed their name. Not now they are handicapped, not now they are disabled. We can say only impairment. We can say them challenged. We can say them in Bengali, আমরা establish করেছি the term প্রতিস্পর্ধী, প্রতিবন্ধী নয়, প্রতিস্পর্ধী। এ তাদের স্পর্ধা, in spite of their visual problem, hearing problem, speech problem, intellectual problem, cognitive problem. They earn, they enjoy all the qualities that I have, you have, all the scientists have. Am I wrong? পৃথিবীতে এমন কোন ক্ষেত্র আছে যেখানে চ্যালেঞ্জরা এস্টাবলিশড হননি? ভুলে গেছেন মাসাদুর রহমানের সেই কথা, যখন তিনি কোনো একটা প্রোগ্রামে আসছেন, কি দেবেন? Aids and appliances. He will provide aids and appliances to all the different categories of challenge or all the different categories of child with special needs. অনেক দূর থেকে তিনি শুনতে পাচ্ছেন, মাইক্রোফোনে উদ্যোক্তারা চেঁচাচ্ছেন, প্রতিবন্ধী মাসাদুর রহমান এই এসে গেছেন, একটু ওয়েট করুন, প্রতিবন্ধী মাসাদুর রহমান ইজ কামিং। There I was present in that dais, এবং আমি বারে বারে বলছিলাম যে স্টপ স্টপ স্টপ, বারে বারে বলছিলাম। মাসাদুর রহমান উঠেই মাইক্রোফোনটা টেনে নিয়ে বলছেন, এতগুলো সমুদ্র পেরিয়ে গেছি, এতগুলো নদী পেরিয়ে গেছি, সুয়েজ খালের মতো চ্যানেলকে আমি কভার করে চলে গেছি, তারপরেও আমি হ্যান্ডিক্যাপ, তারপরেও আমি ডিসেবলড। And if I am a disabled one, then you, যে তুমি সুইমিং করতে পারো না, you show no leveling. You mean universe. Yes,
sorry
please.
to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you. Sir, actually,
Yes.
time is very short. So, if you kindly, it would be better to highlight the last slide.
You just told me that you will provide me 1 hour, and therefore I discuss in this particular fashion. You have started very late. Okay,
Yes,
I will
yes,
try.
sir.
I will try to complete within
Thank you, sir.
5 or
Thank
10
you,
minutes.
sir. Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
So you mean universal design of school and society. The design of each and every school and society will be universal. You cannot make segregate. S means synergy. It is the Latin term. Synergy means synthesis, সংশ্লেষণ. You must synthesize the total knowledge, the total attitudes of all the people throughout the world, of all the research work that published in the different corners of the world, and from it you establish the truth, and you just provide that truth. ওই সত্যটুকুকে দেবেন। পণ্ডিত বিষ্ণু শর্মা যেমন করে বলেছিলেন যে, ওই ভার্সটা বলি, অনন্ত পারং কিল শব্দ শাস্ত্রং স্বল্পং তথায়ুর বহবশ্চ বিঘ্না সারং তত গ্রাহ্যমপাস্য ফলগু হংসৈরি যথা তীরমিবাম্বু মধ্যা। অনন্ত অপারই জ্ঞান ভান্ডার, স্বল্পং তথায়ু, বাঁচবো কোন দিন, বহবশ্চ বিঘ্না, so many different types of hurdles are there, সারং তত গ্রাহ্যমপাস্য ফলগু। তাই জলটাকে ত্যাগ করে দিয়ে আমি অনন্ত জ্ঞান ভান্ডারের সারটা, not the knowledge, but my dear audience, but the wisdom, the truth. Being a teacher, I am a truth seeker. The wisdom I must collect from all the knowledge. How? হংসের যথা তীরমিবাম্বু মধ্যা। জল থেকে দুধটাকে যেমন, ক্ষীরটাকে যেমন আলাদা করে রাজহংস গ্রহণ করে, ঠিক তেমনি করে গ্রহণ করবে। And I mean improvisation of resources, pedagogy and curriculum. You have to improvise. You have to change the resources. You have to change the pedagogy. That is the teaching science, teaching style, teaching approach. And you have to change. You may change, you may modify, you may substitute the different parts of the curriculum. O means openness. আবার টেগোর, রবীন্দ্রনাথ টেগোর, মন যেথা মুক্ত যেথা গৃহের প্রাচীর। অতএব চিত্ত যেথা ভয় শূন্য উচ্চ যেথা স্থির মন যেথা মুক্ত যেথা গৃহের প্রাচীর, that is the openness of mind. All the teachers, all the educational institutions, all the organizations, all the parents, all the political leaders must be aware about what is true openness of mind means. And the last point is N. N means novum organum. It is again the Latin term. Novum organum means new philosophy. Those who know homeopathic science, they know in homeopathy there is one subject, that is the organon. Every homeopathy teacher has to, student has to study in depth the organon. এবং যিনি যত অর্গাননে এক্সপার্ট হন তিনি তত মেডিসিন সিলেকশনে তত ভালো হয়ে ওঠেন, তার ডোজ সিলেকশনে তত ভালো হয়ে ওঠেন, তিনি তত ভালো হোমিওপ্যাথি চিকিৎসক হন। লাইক দেম, all the teachers should have that new philosophy, new concept, new idea. And if it becomes possible, we'll be able to educate each and every child, not only the disabled, not only the challenged, not only the child with special need, not only the impaired child in the mainstream classroom, but all the child. ALL, all three are in the block letter, not capital A, small 2 L, not in small letter ALL, but all three will be in the block letter ALL. Thank you. There is deficiency of time, and
Thank you.
so I want to shortcut here. Thanks to everybody. If I hearted to anybody amongst you, that is not from my own mind, not from my own heart, but I truly love inclusion. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We are enriched by your speech, and he talked about all the issues that a teacher and student should have, and also the other matters. So thank you very much, Dr. Vishnu Bodhananda sir. And now directly I would like to announce the name of Dr. Khalida Galidat, Assistant Professor, Department of Special Education, Stockholm University, Sweden. And I would like to say a little earlier about the prominent speaker. She is at present the Assistant Professor of Department of Special Education, Stockholm University, and she was also an Erasmus scholar. She is involved in a lot of projects with India, Nepal, and Bangladesh, and so on. And she also presented a number of research papers as a speaker in various parts of the world. She also had written in various books, chapter in a book, and also the journals. So now I would like to request Dr. Khalida Galidat, Assistant Professor, Department of Special Education, Stockholm University, Sweden, to deliver her valuable speeches.
A very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for having me here. I would like to begin this session by thanking the Honorable Secretary, Shri Bithun Barik of Kultikri and Teacher Training Institute, and Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Training, as well as the principal of Gaurav Goin Memorial College, to the faculty, teachers, students, and the audience in general for being here and for being a part of the brilliant discussions. What I would like to, before I begin, I would also like to thank the convener, Dr. Nandakishore Mondal, whom we have been continuously in touch with and has been filling me in with what to do and what not to do, and has been very generous and kind in listening to answering all my queries. Before I begin, I would just like, if I go too fast or if I ramble, please don't hesitate to tell me. My intention is not only to have, I would like a two-way dialogue, so that I would aim to finish my presentation within half an hour. So we have a little bit of time for discussions at the end of the session, because I would really like to hear what your thoughts, especially the students, what your take is on inclusion. So my presentation is we're going to focus on on inclusive policy in Sweden. And Sweden, as you know, is very well renowned for education for the special child. Before and as I begin my presentation, there is one question which I would direct specifically to the students. My question is, when you hear the word inclusion, okay, the terminology or the definition of inclusion and inclusive education, inclusion and inclusive education, what is the first thought or the word that comes into your mind? Okay, and we will come back to this at the end of my session. All right, so let's begin without further delay. Today, I'm going to look at some of the emerging issues, challenges, and policy perspectives with a country focus in Sweden. As has been already said, I work at the Department of Special Education, but prior to that, I have done my master's in Jadavpur University and then had to do one here as well. And I am basically a comparativist. In other words, I'm a researcher in comparative international education. So when I work at special education, I got involved in inclusive education as well as education for sustainable development and the sustainable development goals. These are interconnected, these are interlinked, and these are interdependent, to which I will come back later. Now, before a very brief and quick introduction is, you have the new data, the world's out of children, they reveal a little. We have at the moment, presently rather, 258 million children, adolescents and youth out of school in 2018. Around 1/6 of the global population of this age, right? And then you have the World Report on Disability in 2016, which estimates there is 1 billion people living with a disability in the world, out of which 10% are children. So the numbers are pretty huge. And the other kind of complexity when you talk about disabilities is, the categories of disability. How will you define a child who is disabled? How is disability? What are the specific categories that we need to keep in mind when you kind of label a child as disabled? And the difficulty with this labeling problem is that each country has they have their own definition of disability. Please keep that in mind. So it is not very easy. You cannot go by the regular category in one country and say that it is the same definition applied to other countries as well, because the definitions vary. Probably in some countries they are limited, while in other countries they are even more finely detailed. Okay, inclusion and inclusive education, as we have been hearing about inclusion, it is associated with, it is mostly directed. When we talk about inclusion, it means the right to education for all students. Now, inclusion is both also not only related to education, but must take in context, taken into account the societal part of social inclusion as well. Because education, inclusive education, is a subset of inclusion, which is number 4, when you talk about quality education, which is number 4 in the Sustainable Development Goals, to which the world is aiming towards, and it runs out in 2030. So when we talk about inclusion, what are the values? They have interactionist ideology. What is it? They revolve around fellowship, participation, democratization, benefit, equal access, quality, equity, and justice, as well as equality, which is extremely important. And inclusion involves fellowship and participations in school culture and curricula for all students. So inclusion, it is very important to keep in mind and keep reminding ourselves that inclusion begins from home, right? And then it spills out over to the society. And then when you walk into school, then you have inclusion as a part of inclusive education. So when we think about inclusion and inclusive education, it is a goal. right? It is not an end in itself. We are continuously and constantly working towards inclusion, because then only we can realize inclusive education. And when we talk about inclusive education, what is it? It is seen as a process of addressing and responding to the diversity of needs of all learners through increasing participation in learning, cultures, and communities, and reducing exclusion from education and from within education. As the previous speaker had raised certain points, that inclusion, when we look at the diversity, it is important that inclusion and inclusive education should look at the diversity of needs. Now, when we talk about diversity of needs, it is not, you're delimiting inclusive education. Why? Because you are talking about needs of each and every child. So that is no child left behind policy, right? So when you talk about diversity of needs, you broaden it. So it does not get restricted only to the special child, because inclusive education is for each and every child, because our learning goal is different, our learning outcome is different. We all have a different pace of learning. So how do you ensure that everybody reaches their education goals, or the goals of education, right? And of course, when you have children with special needs, they need more attention. So how does education respond to the needs of each and every child? So when we do this, when we broaden the horizon, when we broaden the definition of inclusive education, we are talking about every child, irrespective of whether the child has an intellectual disability or whether the child is gifted. So you put inclusive, and that is the way I think about inclusive education, without labels. You're responding to the diversity of needs of all the learners, and that is what each and every, as in the teaching, as a teacher, as an educator, this is what we should respond to. This is what we need to take into account. Okay, since Sweden, Scandinavia, the Scandinavian countries are very kind of well known for their policy in special education. So what we are going to do is I will give you a very brief, I don't have the time to go into details. You can look up the links which are already there in the presentation, but I'll give you an overview of what the education policy is in Sweden, overview of the Swedish education system, special teachers education in Sweden, inclusion or integration, and what are some of the challenges to inclusion. And you will be surprised to learn that when there are a lot of similarities between India and Sweden. We need to keep in mind that just because Sweden is a first world country, that means there's a lot of difference between the way we teach in India and the way we teach in Sweden. Yes, of course, there are differences, but there is also a lot of similarities. So that, each country, that is one of the reasons I continue to work with India, because we learn a lot from each other, right? Okay, now the school login or the Education Act came into, they had a Special Education Act in 2010. It contains basic regulations for the preschool. Preschool over here is called Förskolan, the preschool class, or Förskoleklassen. Now the education system is a bit different. We have Förskola class is the 0 class or the reception class. So when you finish your kindergarten, you directly don't join grade 1. You go into a reception class at the age of 6, whereby they kind of train you or initiate you into grade 1. So this is where a bit of a difference is. And then in India, we have 10 plus 2, but over here we have 9 plus 3. So in grade 9, you finish your secondary examination, and 10, 11, 12, after completion of 10, 11, 12, you give your higher secondary examination, right? And then we have also the municipal adult education or the communal vuxenutbildning. That is, vuxen is adult, and it is for everyone. And then for newly arrived students, newly arrived immigrants rather, you have something called SFE, so that you learn the Swedish culture, you learn the Swedish language, which I have also had to do, and so that you can speak the language. Because Sweden is a very small country and they pride themselves in being able to communicate, and they pride the language, right? So most of the courses at the university are in Swedish. You have English courses also. You have a handful of English courses, but majority, especially in social sciences and the humanities, they are in Swedish, right? So we have to be able to communicate in both languages in order to teach. And they consider it as an integral part of getting included or integrated into the Swedish society. Now we have also the Sami school. What is the Sami school? The Samis are the native Swedes. That means, in India we have, let's say, the tribes. We have in USA you have the Red Indians. The Samis are the native Swedes and that reside in Sweden for many years. And you have Samis in the Nordic countries, in Norway, in Denmark, in Sweden, right? And they have their own special schools, so that because they want to hang on, they want to retain their culture. And as well as a leisure time center, Fritidshemmet. I will come back to this later. It's a very interesting system that they have here. It also applies to education for students with learning disabilities and to education for students with impaired hearing or with severe speech and language difficulties. Grundsärskolan, over here is written in Sweden, if you see on your right hand side, it means Grundsärskolan. It means the special school at the primary level is for your child. So they make sure that the child gets integrated and schooling is compulsory. So they ensure that the child gets admitted into the right school, right? Okay. Now, this is a basic layout of the Swedish education system. You have at the top, like in other countries, Ministry of Education and Research. Then you have the National Agency for Education. You have the Swedish School Inspectorate, and you have the National Agency for Special Needs Education and Schools. That is the SPSM. So the National Agency for Special Needs Education and Schools is the one that looks into education for the special child or the exceptional child, the child that has intellectual disability or severe disabilities that falls within the categories of the description of what disability is outlined as in the Swedish education system. Now, below that, you have municipality level, public schools, and independent schools. Now, one thing very interesting we need to know, the Swedish education system is very decentralized, all right? So each commune, they have their own schools, right? The commune is responsible, the municipality is responsible for education within their area, within their region. And we have the public school as well as the private schools, right? Now, the public schools are the ones which are run by the commune. We have something called independent schools that are partly funded by the commune as well. And education is free in Sweden, right from grade 1 on to higher education. So basically, if you are a resident of the EU and if you are resident of Sweden, you do not pay for your education. Okay, only you pay for your you pay for your kindergarten, because that depends on how many hours you want to keep the child in the daycare when parents are working. Now, another very interesting thing to note is that, when you pay for kind of a tuition fee, so the child is looked after in school, in the daycare, the fee is arranged or kind of organized with and matches the income of the parents. So, for example, if a parent does not, is out of work, is jobless, and cannot afford to pay the tuition fee, a very nominal amount is charged. Okay, so the tuition fee is very fluid. If a parent can afford to pay for the tuition fee, and this is only for the daycare, I'm not talking about the secondary schools, they pay, they are kind of charged according to their income. And we also, another thing you must keep in mind is, the feasibility of this kind of an organization is only possible because Sweden is a very small country. And the inhabitants or the population of Sweden is approximately 10 million or 12 million. I mean, entire Sweden can fit into Calcutta. So if you have a very, restricted population, a limited population, and you have resources, right, then only the education system or the infrastructural support is possible. And this is one thing extremely important. Like if we have all the plans, if we follow all the, what UN has legislated or UN has kind of advocates, we need to have resources. We need to have teachers. And this is possible only if government has sufficient funding, okay? All right, this is the Swedish education system. Like we have, very quickly, I'm going to go through this, as I mentioned. We have something very interesting called, you have the preschool, you have, and each part or each grade, let's say from preschool, then you have grade 1 and 2, to secondary education and higher secondary education. All of these are linked to leisure time centers. What is leisure time centers? It's basically extracurricular activities, which children, since parents are working, especially with small children, they need to be kept at home. And in Sweden, it's basically nuclear family. And so what, and it's a very expensive, it's a very, very expensive country to reside in. So in order to encourage parents, both parents to work, the government has these leisure activity centers, as well as a day school, which they pay. But and it's not only fun and games, they do a lot of creative work as well, okay? Then we have the municipal adult education. You have the Swedish tuition for immigrants. What I will do is I'm going to point to only one. If you have any questions, we can pick it up later. But there is one area which I found very interesting as an immigrant coming into Sweden, the folk high school. Okay, now what is the folk high school? The folk high school is very typical Scandinavia, Denmark and Sweden, right? Scandinavian countries are Norway, Denmark and Sweden. So folk high school is for everyone, for adults. If due to any circumstances you are unable to continue your education and you want to pick it up again later on, you can always join the folk high school. And after completion of the specific subjects, once you get the grades, you are able to access university and university colleges at any given time in your life. So you don't need to be in your 20s or early 30s to be able to do a PhD. We have a lot of faculty that have completed their PhD in their 50s. And they work at the university. So in Scandinavia, learning is lifelong and life-wide. So you are not restricted or you are not penalized because of your age. And this I found extremely encouraging. And not only that, when you have immigrants, when you have newly arrived immigrants coming into Sweden, we are encouraged to learn or to attend these vocational or these folk high school, because you get paid by the government to learn the language. And if you want to pursue anything later on, you get a nominal amount of money, which is basically coffee, to buy your coffee or tea time, anything, snacks. But this is a way of keeping, a way of encouraging people to study. And they also have a lot of centers where if I want to share my knowledge, let's say in something like knitting or sewing, we can have our own study circles. And you don't need to charge anything. You can create your own study circle and you are helped by the municipality, right? So these are some of the very interesting features that form a part of the Swedish education system. Now, since I live in Stockholm, I'm going to look specifically at special needs children in Stockholm. And as I have been mentioning a little earlier, the special schools are run by the state for children and young persons who are prevented by vision impairment, deafness, hearing impairment, or speech impairment. There are 8 such schools, and the state pays all the pupils' expenses, including boarding house accommodation and travel. The municipalities are obliged in accordance with the School Act to provide upper secondary education for young people with intellectual disabilities who are unable to attend ordinary upper secondary school because of their disabilities. So what basically I'm trying to say is that the education is funded by the state, okay? And there are, children who are highly autistic because it's a spectrum, and who are parents are unable to take them to school. So the school, the state or the municipality, they run private taxis for them. So these children are picked up from their house, taken to school, and again dropped back. Another very interesting definition of which I would like also to bring is over here in this part of the world, we don't say disabled. Okay, we have been requested to refrain from saying that child is has intellectual disability, right? This child is blind. We use the term called the exceptional child to neutralize it. Now, when you say exceptional children, it can mean everyone, right? Because each child is exceptional and each child is unique, but some children need more help than the other. In Swedish, we say funktion variation. That means diverse. Everybody has a variety of functional needs. And when you say functional needs, it can be for anyone, because some children may be weak in maths, they don't understand. So that's a different kind of need. So you need special teachers to help children in math. So we are trying out here to delimit the definition to include everyone. All right. Okay. Now, these are very basic information that schooling for the intellectually handicapped is compulsory for 9 years from 7 to 16 to 17. And this type of school is divided in basic schools and training schools. And then you have, basic school is for pupils who are considered capable of learning to read and write and of acquiring new knowledge through these skills. And training school is for those who are unable to assimilate instruction in basic school. This education is 4 years in duration and may be started up to the age of 20. For persons over 20, there are similar education programs within adult education. Okay. What is the aim of Sweden's disability policy? Overall responsibility for improving accessibility, right, is divided between different levels of government and public agencies. They establish guidelines for disability policies, mainly through legislation. Government agencies have a national responsibility for specific sectors, including education, healthcare, and employment. The county councils are responsible for health and medical care, and 290 Swedish municipalities are responsible for education and social services, among other things. So these are, and we need to keep in mind when everywhere, if you, in Sweden, wherever you go, whichever building you enter, it is accessible, right? They have trams, they have special areas, they have, so that, even the window, the doors are designed in such a way so that a person who is on a wheelchair can enter. So it is very disabled friendly, right? The accessibility is not an issue in Sweden. Okay, now another very interesting thing, just to give you an idea about how inclusion works in Sweden is they have now, so that especially with children who are extremely, they have a lot of special requirements, right? And in order to give the parents a break from, so that parents also get some time off, they have special housing for those that are above 14 or 15, and for the adults as well, so they can spend weekends away in these housing areas, and they are looked after, they are engaged in learning different activities. And sometimes when a child becomes an adult, they have and They need the accommodation to be modified to fit their specific needs. They have the right to apply for a grant from their local council or municipality. And as I mentioned earlier, transport, having the possibility to travel without hindrance is of vital importance to people with disabilities. And to this end, the Swedish government has instructed the country's municipalities to initiate moves to make facilities such as bus and tram stops more accessible, which is all part of the Public Transportation Act. And Sweden, of course, has signed the Salamanca Declaration, and they have taken it very, very seriously. And those, the children or adults who have who are blind, let's say, they have helpers coming in once a week, twice a week to help them out with their household chores. They take them out into public. They are there to guide them. So you are not left by yourself. The state, the municipality provides it, so they come and cook for you also and clean the apartment and get all the groceries that is required for sustenance. So there is always a prop. There is always a mechanism to help the child or the adult with special needs. Okay, and finding a job, then you have, yes, and what is very interesting and extremely gratifying out here is that if the child is capable, if the adult is capable of working, they get a job. And then Samhal is another huge organization that looks into what kind of job is suitable for the adult. And they offer them meaningful employment. And you will see mostly the adults, those with intellectual disabilities, they are working in restaurants, they are working in your grocery stores, and they find a job, and also in digital, let's say in companies also with digital, they operate as data. I'm forgetting the name. They kind of work as data workers, like they do punch in very, very simple data and logistics, which are required for some kind of a job. So each job is kind of channelized into the kind of ability that a child has. Okay. And there is a huge focus on improving app, because Sweden is a very digital, it's a cashless country. It's extremely digital. So everything we work, it's through computers, and these apps are extremely. And we have these. There are special. There's a special section in the hospital which, when a child is born with an intellectual disability, the parents are contacted, right? And they encourage the parents to come into this organization or this area, the special section, and they train the parents to help the child, not the other way around. They train the parents to help the child, and the parents learn to communicate with the child, right? Especially at the infant age. They grow up with the child, because, it's either through sign language, or, if you're blind, through with the parents, how do you give for an autistic child, routine, schedule is extremely important. So how can a parent at home have these strategies in place so the child can, that it's not frustrating for the child. So it's the other way around, all right? It is not only the child that has to grow up into the society, but it is also the parent, the teachers, the society, the community that learns with the child. At our department, we have deaf education, right? And we have a teacher who's completely deaf. So when we communicate with it, she can lip read, but we have also picked up the sign language. It is a language, and it's fascinating how quickly we learn. And that is the mindset that we need to have. It should be both ways, not one way, okay? And then you have the right to independence, and it was in 1994. It is a human rights law designed to offer people with extensive disabilities creative opportunities to lead independent lives and to ensure that they have equal living conditions. And what does it do? It gives them rights to personal assistance, which I mentioned, a form of support that is mostly funded by taxes, right? And the amount, as I mentioned earlier, the amount of help they receive is determined by the extent of the disability. So they kind of see what is their difficulty level, and then the resource is kind of allocated depending on their needs. Okay. And yeah, we have the Discrimination Act as well. It was introduced in 2009. What was the purpose? To strengthen the legal protection of the individual and to help victims of discrimination obtain redress and financial compensation. And then you have the proactive part of the law imposes a duty to take positive action and concerns working life and the education system. And then we have the mediator who mediates between the parents and the student or the adult with the organization. He's called the Equality Ombudsman. And this ombudsman is not only for the special needs, it is for everyone. If you work in the university, at the university, we have an ombudsman. So if there is a problem, and it's serious, we contact him and he kind of negotiates with the management to see how we can solve this. Okay, we have Sweden has signed all the international conventions. You have Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, Standard Rules on the Equalization Opportunities of Persons with Disability, and the convention is legally binding, right? As a result, Sweden has committed to ensuring that national legislation does not discriminate against people with disabilities. And this is very, very important. It is legally binding. Okay, now I'm just going to come back to special teachers education in Sweden, right? Now, at the Department of Special Education, we are the only department of special education that is autonomous. That means we are independent and we form a part of Stockholm University. Now, what do we do in special teachers training? We have another very interesting definition is we have something called speciallärare. Okay, special is special and lärare is teacher, right? So you have special teachers, and then you have something which is new, which a lot of us may not. I mean, I was not familiar with this label or a definition called specialpedagog. Pedagog, a special pedagogue. Pedagog is pedagogy. So the specialpedagog is about kind of coordinate that everything is working according to plan, and she is like the head among the special teachers. So if there is a problem, they go to the specialpedagog, right? And at the Department of Special Education, especially we have teachers, we have students who want to be a special teacher in language writing and literacy development, deafness, vision. They have to come here. They have to come here in order to get that degree. Okay, and in the general teacher training course, which is conducted by the Department of Education, which is another big department, there is a 7.5 credits on special needs education for which they have to come to us, right? So this is how special teachers education is in Sweden. And there is another special department, which is a part of the Department of Education, which is at Gothenburg University. But we are the biggest and the autonomous department in Sweden. So we get students from all over Sweden. Okay. And as I have said, they have those with special education needs must have access to regular schools. And we have child-centered pedagogy, regular schools. With this are most effective means of combating discrimination. I'm not going to read through all this, but I will just talk. And to provide an effective education to the majority of children and improve the efficiency and ultimately the cost effectiveness of the entire education system. So these are some of the very important criteria which are in place when we have special education for the special child. Okay, now there is something, inclusion or integration. I don't know if you're familiar with this statement. Sometimes, as we say out here, sometimes it is better to exclude in order to include. Now, what do I mean by that? Because in other words, it means that since inclusive education responds to the diversity of needs of each and every child, sometimes certain children need more help. So when we talk about an inclusive classroom, it doesn't mean that you put everybody in together. That is integration, right? But if you want to ensure that the learning goals are met, then you have to remove these children because their needs are different. So in order for them to receive quality education, you have to exclude them and later put them back once they reach the required level, okay? And PISA is creating a havoc, not only here, but everywhere else. Are you familiar with PISA? PISA, the Program of International Student Assessment, which is done in the EU countries, as well as in China, as well as in the US. So there is basically a lot of stress on the mainstream education. And unfortunately, it takes away teachers from special education, right? Because PISA is all about ranking. And every country, each and every country wants their ranking to go up. So this creates a lot of tension in the regular school. Okay, what are the challenges to inclusion? Parents and children increasingly select schools. Work within schools is of increasingly individualized character, emphasizing individuality at the expense of other values such as fellowship, solidarity, equal opportunity. Now, what I would also like to point out is, over here, each child, when a child walks into a school, he is funded, since he's funded by the municipality, he brings with him money to the school, right? So the school is very careful to ensure that they retain the child. Otherwise, we have this school choice in Sweden. Otherwise, if the parents are dissatisfied, they will just leave and walk over to the other school. So the problem, some of the challenges is it's becoming a very client kind of relationship, client-based relationship, which was not there before. But with the economics coming into place and, with the economical structure and dependence on resource from the commune, this has created a lot of tension. And some of the schools in Sweden are closing down because they don't have adequate students, okay? Then inclusion understood and used as a concept must be defined as to increase fellowship, to increase participation, to increase democratization, to increase benefit, okay? Fellowship, all children should be a member of the class, to increase participation, to increase all voices should be heard. All students shall have the opportunity to comment upon and to influence matters. To increase benefit, all students should have an education that enables them to learn and participate, because that is what we want our children to do. That is what we have been able to do, that we have a voice. All voices should be heard and they should not get lost in the din, right? Okay, and this, I think I always like to end with this when I'm talking about equality versus equity. What is the difference, right? When you talk about both are equally difficult to achieve, but when we talk about equity, we see when you remove the barriers to education, that's all that is needed. That is all that we want to do. So you have to, education, when we talk about quality education, when we talk about equity, equality, please understand that it always begins from home, okay? School is much later. So how do you shape? School is, of course, very later, but it also plays an instrumental role in promoting this. But it doesn't, what I'm trying to say is it doesn't happen by itself. You have to take in the context, number one, you have to change the mindset, irrespective of whether you are here in Sweden or in EU or you are in the global south. The problem is the same. Okay, and we have a huge problem from 2015. We have a lot of immigrants coming in and they have not been included in the society because of language constraints and because of different learning needs and because of the inability, to communicate with them. So this is another problem which Sweden is facing. Okay, so when we talk about, I've kind of, what I've tried to do basically is I've kind of gone in between inclusion and inclusive education, because for me, inclusion is important because since it leads to inclusive education, right? It is, you look at this, you kind of play with it. You have to understand that both are equally important if we want it to work, okay? So I think I shall end here and thank you for your patience. Hopefully I have remained within the time limit. And if there are any questions, please, I'll be very happy to take them.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am. And
My pleasure.
ma'am, I have something to tell you that we have an appeal.
Sure.
That's you have to inaugurate our seminars abstract book right now. Share some words for this moment. If you
Sorry, I didn't understand. I
ma'am,
have
yes,
to?
ma'am, yes, ma'am. Actually, you have to inaugurate our abstract book, previous seminars abstract book.
Okay. So you need me to write and send it to you?
Ma'am, this is the time to inaugurate the abstract book on
Okay.
webinar today's. And this is shown into a screen, and you have to spare something, some words for this moment, ma'am.
Okay. Can you just pull it up a bit? I can't see. I just
Okay,
see a
ma'am.
half.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, this is the time to inaugurate our abstract book on this webinar entitled Inclusive Education, Emerging Issues, Challenges and Policy Perspectives, and it inaugurated by Honorable Resource Person Dr. Khaleda Ganidat, Assistant Professor, Department of Special Education, Stockholm University, Sweden. Ma'am, please spare a little words for this moment.
I'm very humbled. I'm very flattered that you've asked me to inaugurate this. I think it is a brilliant initiative, and I hope we continue to do work together in the future as well. And I look forward to read all the abstracts as well. And seriously, I think we need to continue working because we have a lot to learn from each other. We have a lot to learn from each other. That's all I can say. You know, when you think of, as I said, we realize because India is multicultural, multi-plural, and that is what Sweden does not understand till now, because we have a lot of immigrants out here, and extremely important to understand the diversity, which is very important if you want to achieve inclusion and, of course, inclusive education. Yeah. So thank you once again for the honor, and yeah, it's great. It's great to be here and to talking to you all. And I'll be very happy if you have any questions. I can take them up if you have time for any questions. So, yeah.
Thank you once again, ma'am, for inauguration the abstract paper on today's webinar. And again, I say that this is organized by Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education, jointly Gaurav Goin Memorial College, Chandrakona Road, Paschim Medinipur, and Kultigri Teachers Training Institute of Higher Studies. And now we already published our abstract book. And thank you once again, ma'am, Dr. Khaleda Ganidat, Honorable Distinguished Person, Special Education Department of Assistant Professor, Stockholm University, Sweden. Thank you once again, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having me here, and you did a good job, Oranjit. So that was very good. And keep it up, and good luck with your studies.
I have a questions to you.
Sure. Okay, you're not going to let go of me, all right?
Actually, it is a separate questions. Though I vividly listen your entire speech, but I have questions to you that how can we orientate the students who have dropped out? Actually, means to say, what is the tactics?
The tactic is, to have more communication with the parents. You have to have more social workers that can go and communicate with the parents, talk to them, that there are a lot of support in place, support structures or the mechanisms in place that you need to educate the child, because it's a different system in India. So, and also another thing is where, parents don't want to send their child into schools because they don't have the resources, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So resources is the most important part. So if there is funding available and if they can be informed, I don't think it should be a problem. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Most welcome.
Anybody else have any questions to ma'am? Anybody?
Madam, I have a question, madam.
Sure, please go ahead.
India is a very cross-cultural country.
Yes.
There are so many castes, creeds, religion in India. Would you think that the one single inclusive education system will meet the needs of the state. Especially, you have to know that the state uses education as a tool for making its citizen.
Hmm.
So, would you think that the one inclusive education system will meet the desires of the state?
Okay, can I ask you a question? In back, before I answer your question, can I ask you a question? What is inclusive education to you? What do you mean by, how would you define inclusive education?
I am not a discipline of education, but I know that the inclusive education from your lecture that it's the education that develop the all citizen, all all the students challenge, impaired, challenge, impaired, all the students who used to go to school. All-round development to this all-round development to the students. That is called inclusive education. I know from your lecture, but I confess that I am not a student of education. I am a student of other social science. I am a student of history. So I have no any idea of the inclusive education.
Not a problem. I was a student of history also, so that's not an issue. But what you pointed out to meet the all, you spoke about the all-round development of the child, right? This is what you said. So when you talk about inclusive education, it cannot be a single flat statement. It has to take into consideration the context. What is the context? What is the need of the child? Because unless you take into account the needs of the child, it is not possible to have inclusive education, right? So each child has to be valued individually, right? Each child has to be taken into consideration. That is what I mean by inclusive education. And that is how we do it out here as well. And most of the countries that I know, that you take into account the abilities of the child and what is the difficulty of the child, and then you make the education to meet his needs, not the other way around. That is inclusive education. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you, ma'am.
Most welcome.
Okay, any other else?
Okay. All right. Okay, no more questions?
Okay, madam, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for having me here. It was a pleasure to be here, and I hope we continue to do things like this in the near future as well. Good luck with
Thank you, ma'am.
the
Thank you.
seminar, with the webinar. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
And for all the audience and the delegates assembled here, for your kind information, we just say that our feedback form already uploaded in Zoom apps and YouTube also, and you please do watch and comment it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye. Stay safe, everyone. Bye.
We have already uploaded the feedback form in Zoom apps, YouTube, and WhatsApp group. Now, I would like to request Dr. Parthita Vishwas, a resource person and delegates and today's speaker, Dr. Parthita Vishwas, Head, Department of Education, School of Education, Adamas University, Adamas City, West Bengal. Ma'am, I would like to request, please deliver your valuable speech right now.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Orijit. And I would firstly like to congratulate Gaurav Guin Memorial College, Department of Education. Special thanks to the principal as well as Mr. Pankaj Pal, and a very well-known and acquaintance of mine. Secondly, the initiative which has been taken by Mr. Mithun Barik, Secretary of Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education, as well as Pultikri Teachers Training Institute of Higher Education. And I would also like to congratulate Dr. Nando Kishore Mondal, teacher in charge, as well as the convener of this webinar. and I am addressing also to all the teachers, faculty, students, and the participants out here. Thank you for inviting me. And with that, I would like to share my screen and share my views with my topic, which is inclusive education, the issues and challenges in India. Since Dr. Khaleda Ghani has basically given her version on Sweden, and I will be giving my version on the Indian context. Okay, so I hope I am audible. If you could kindly tell it to me that whether I am properly.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, because here it's raining, so that is why I am thinking that. Okay. So this is my topic, inclusive education, practices and challenges. I would be specially highlighting about the Indian context, and I will be also specially highlighting upon some of the institutions here. Okay, so let me go to the classroom. First, since we are all teachers, first let us all go to a classroom, which is a inclusive classroom. So what is an inclusive classroom or a classroom? It is a mini society which has got all the sorts of teachers, students, and our work, that is the teacher's work, is to look after all these sorts of students. So there may be, since inclusive education does not always mean special education, there is a common mistake that inclusive education is equal to or equivalent to like inclusive education is equivalent to special education. But unfortunately, inclusive education is having a combination of something of learning disorder, learners from low income group, then there has been first generation learners, then talented, gifted children, then of course there has been some instances of mentally challenged, physically challenged students, slow learners, as well as socio-economically backward, like street children, platform children, delinquent child, children from brothels, children of convents, children from SC and ST community, and others. So inclusion is totally a wholesome of all these contexts where you find that there are, you should first come to know that what is the school community, then the needs of the whole community, the valuing other cultures, reflecting on your practice, then the knowledge and understanding of the needs of all the pupils. Then there has been individualized education program, which I am highlighting in the mouse right now. There has been individualized education program. I believe that in the B.Ed, those who have had Bachelor of Education, Master of Education, as well as MA in Education and Honors in Education, they are having a far more good idea about the individualized education programs, which are mainly based on inclusive education. Now, this changing the way things are organized, they suits the pupils' needs. And this inclusive education, as a teacher, we should see that it should provide a flexible learning environment. More than just a policy, there are a lot of policies. Then the central government at present has made a lot of policies related to inclusive education. Of course, inclusive education is very much interrelated with teacher education as well as special education. But let me tell you that these policies are mere policies if you don't take it by heart, if we don't take it emotionally and progress towards the child, it is not possible to succeed in inclusive education. Coming further, now we have to see that we have to, as a teacher, we have to cross the divide. It is known as crossing the divide. Now, if one child gets excluded, like exclusion is just the opposite term of inclusion. Okay, so we see that if this exclusion and inclusion, both these separate views, we should be including this particular special children as well as children from low income group as well as from other stratas into the right hand side picture, which is they are more than less normal. That is the thing, and we should all include all of them rather than excluding them, rather than ignoring them. We should basically include them into this strata of the society. And basically the society, one of the most important feature is the school, the college, the university, everything. So we can see that we should include this, and with this inclusion, this is known as inclusive education. Now, what is the role of a teacher? The teacher's role is very much important. It is very much varied. So the teacher's role here becomes very much mandatory. As a teacher, now education, our respected professor Vishnupada Nanda sir, who is also my teacher as well, I respect him a lot. He has told a lot about Salamanca conference as well as the teacher's role as well as the society's role. So going by his, basically I look up to Dr. Nando sir, since he is an inspiration to many and to me also. So it becomes mandatory for the teachers basically, because from the society, from the home, when we go, when the child goes to the school, their inspiration and their first guru or guide is the teacher. So when the teachers should understand the learning needs of the children, like it is very impossible, I must say that it is not possible for a 60 or 100, especially in government schools, there are 60 or 100 children who are maybe inside one class. But as a teacher, we have to basically give concentration on those child, so that they could think of adopting the best suitable way of helping that child learn in a very different as well as a efficient way. Now, there is no alternative other than enrollment of all children in the mainstream education program, and that is inclusion of all children in education. Basically, there is an act, there is a policy known as Education for All, and in Bengali যেটা আমরা বলে থাকি সর্বশিক্ষা অভিযান। সর্বশিক্ষা অভিযানে আমাদের সবাইকে যুক্ত করতে হয়, এবং আমাদের যখন প্রয়োজন পড়ে, the school teachers, many of us are our students who are school teachers, আমাদের তো বেশ কিছু ডেপুটেড ক্যান্ডিডেটরা আমাদের এখানে, যেহেতু কুলটিক্রি টিচার্স ট্রেনিং বা ঋষি অরবিন্দ ট্রেনিং কলেজ এবং অ্যাডামাস ইউনিভার্সিটি, আমি আগে পৈলান কলেজ অফ এডুকেশনে ছিলাম, তো সেখানে যে দেখা গেছে যে আমাদের অনেক ডেপুটেড টিচার্সরা আমাদের এখানে পড়তে আসেন, এবং তাদের আর কি যেটা এই এক্সপিরিয়েন্স থেকে দেখেছি, এবং আমাদের আর কি যেটা কিছুক্ষণ আগে যেটা আর কি ইনঅগারাল স্পিচে প্রফেসর নন্দও বলেছেন যে তাদের আর কি ফার্স্ট বেঞ্চে বসাতে হয়। ফার্স্ট বেঞ্চে কেন বসাতে হয়? যারা ইনক্লুসিভ চিলড্রেন তারা তো কিছু বুঝতে পারেন না, এবং তারা কিছু জিনিসটা অতটা আয়ত্তে আনতে পারে না, এবং দেয়ার হ্যাজ বিন লট অফ চিলড্রেন who are basically very much hyperactive. মানে হাইপার অ্যাক্টিভ যদি হয় তাহলে তাকে তো লাস্ট বেঞ্চে বসানোটা মানে অন্য বাচ্চাদেরও ডিস্টার্ব করা। তো এখানে আমাদের সর্বশিক্ষা অভিযানে কিন্তু দেখতে হবে যে প্রপারলি আমাদের আর কি তাদের কিভাবে ডিল করতে হবে অ্যাজ আ টিচার। আর আমি কিছু প্র্যাকটিক্যাল এক্সপিরিয়েন্সেস অলওয়েজ বলে থাকি, আই ডোন্ট গো ফর দ্য থিওরিজ, আই ডোন্ট গো বাই দ্য লেকচার মেথড, though I am also a student of history. Later on I came at education, but আমার মনে হয় কিছুটা ইন্টারঅ্যাক্টিভ প্রোগ্রাম নিয়ে বলাটা বা প্রেজেন্ট করাটা অনেকটা বেটার হয়। সো আমাদের আর কি যেটা দেখতে হবে, যেটা আর কি বললাম যে এক্সক্লুশন ইজ দ্য অপোজিট টার্ম অফ ইনক্লুশন। সো a school may not be called inclusive, as I told you, because I am highlighting upon inclusive education. So if it is not including the inclusive children and it excludes children because of its organization, cultural or curricular disabilities or due to certain limitations, then we cannot say that that school is a inclusive school, right? তো আমাদের আর কি কখনোই সেইটা রাইট নেই। অফকোর্স দেন there has been some children from either due to social, economic and cultural disadvantages, these children cannot come into the school, and maybe the school is not allowing them in any context, so that school cannot be told as a inclusive school. So it is basically an exclusion. So inclusion or exclusion, these are the separate terms, কিন্তু আমাদের বুঝতে হবে যে what is inclusion and what is exclusion, কারণ আমরা যদি এক্সক্লুশনটা না বুঝি আমরা কিন্তু ইনক্লুশনটা বুঝতে পারবো না। ওকে, সো এক্সক্লুশন কিন্তু বিভিন্ন ধরনের হয়। দেয়ার আর 4 টাইপস অফ এক্সক্লুশন। এখানে যেহেতু লিমিটেড টাইম, আই ক্যান গো অন অ্যান্ড অন বিকজ স্পেশাল এডুকেশন বা ইনক্লুসিভ এডুকেশন নিয়ে আই ক্যান speak about ages, but in a nutshell, exclusion refers to expulsion on account of disciplinary action, exclusion on account of, as I have told you before, social and economic factors, the labeling and categorization of children as special education needs. স্পেশাল এডুকেশন নিডস কে কিন্তু ইন শর্ট বলা হয় সেন। এটা আমরা অনেকেই জানি যারা আর কি টিচার এডুকেশন বা এডুকেশন নিয়ে ডিল করেছি, আমরা স্পেশাল এডুকেশন নিডস কে ইন শর্ট সেনও বলি। So this ACN pupil with or without statement leads to their exclusion while they may remain physically available in the school system. And then there has been a lot of other curricular, internal, cultural, organizational, then social factors which maybe they are excluded from the inclusive education system or from the mainstream system. So this exclusion happens in 3 broad categories. One, প্রথমেই তো আমরা ফ্যামিলি অ্যান্ড কমিউনিটি, যেটা স্যারও কিছুক্ষণ আগে বলেছেন যে we learn from the family as well as the community, and then we go to the school as well as the bureaucracy, and finally we go where we go to the education policy or to the educational policy system. Now the term inclusion in education, এই যে inclusion আমরা যেটা আর কি আজকে যেটা নিয়ে আমরা ভীষণভাবে চর্চা করছি এবং আমরা বলছি, the term inclusion in education has a much wider concept actually, as this is not a very limited time frame unfortunately. Inclusion or inclusive education and interrelated is a lot of things. Most of the main important factor is special education. This inclusion in education is a wider concept. I mean, it is so vast a thing that it cannot be finished in a small time frame. That's the thing. And inclusion in education is one aspect of inclusion in society. So if we are not building an inclusive society, আমাদের তো এক্সপেক্টই করা উচিত না যে আমরা স্কুলেও আর কি সেটা প্র্যাকটিস করব। ইট ইজ নট পসিবল ফর আস বিকজ দিস শুড কাম ফ্রম দ্য সোসাইটি। ফার্স্ট সোসাইটিতে আসবে, ফ্যামিলি কমিউনিটিতে আসবে, অ্যান্ড দেন উই উইল বি গোয়িং টু দ্য স্কুল অ্যান্ড বিউরোক্রেসি। সো দ্যাট ইজ দ্য থিং। সো there we should say that the introduction of inclusive education should be such that it is basically a strategy to build inclusive society where everyone should have the right to participate, access, as well as they should get success in educational sphere, and they should be able to coordinate, communicate and collaborate with their own peers. Peers means their age mates, that means their friends, their friends who are beside them, and they should be making friendship with them without any discrimination. Here in একটা example আমি দিতে পারি, I should give an example here. That is a example of a cinema, of a Hindi cinema, which we have I think come across, that is known as Pa. পা বলে অমিতাভ বচ্চনের একটা সিনেমা হয়েছিল where Abhishek Bachchan was also there. So there we see that there are some children who used to mix with that character Oro, but there is one girl who used to be frightened of oral. Okay, so we should, as a teacher, I am just giving an example so that it comes to your mind. Basically, when we are giving a cinema example, people tend to be get most interested here. So I am giving, this is my last 15 or 18 years experience while teaching. We see that we haven't basically given an inclusive society to that picture, and it shows that some are getting frightened of oral, some are not getting frightened of oral. So that is not properly an inclusive society, right? Now, these are the 9 pillars. Okay, I am basically labeling all the things all together. Okay, so inclusion depends upon, this is my research, my experience. It depends on this 9 pillars. First is, if you are not involved, it is not possible to practice inclusive education. Then N is no discrimination. If you are discriminating them, if you are discriminating the persons, then of course, as I have told you before, it is not possible to basically deal with that. Then collaboration. Collaboration is basically, collaboration may be of different types. Collaboration may be collaboration with friendship, collaboration with teachers, collaboration with the school society, etc., etc. Then labeling. If you are labeling someone that he is blind, he is not good at studies, this labeling is very common. Let me tell you, when you are in your life, in your personal life, you are leveling your own children also. আপনারা তো নিজেদের ছেলেমেয়ের মধ্যেও অনেক সময় ডিফারেন্সিয়েট করেন, আমিও হয়তো কখনো করে ফেলি। Then universal design of school and society. Now this UDL, I will come later. This universal design of school and society is something where it should be practiced, that everyone should be encouraging this inclusive education. Then synergy. Synergy is basically again a sort of collaboration between the different sectors and different factors. And I is improvisation of resources, pedagogy and curriculum. We know that there are a lot of resources where we should bank upon. Then we have pedagogical knowledge like learning designs, then other type of teachings, then improvised teachings, curriculum, improved curriculum like blended learning, then online learning teaching system, where we can encourage this children, special children, inclusive children, gifted, talented children. Then we should be having an open mind. One who is not visually very strong, you should not be having a very closed mind that he cannot do anything. We have had a lot of examples. If we go to Google and if we go to YouTube, we find that there are a lot of special children who are more excelling than others. In fact, I know someone personally who is a mild autistic patient, or rather say a mild autistic student, who is more basically sincere than any of my normal students. This I am telling you from my first-hand experience. Okay, if you are not having a first-hand experience, then it is not possible for you or for me to see that what is real, what is unreal. But I have seen that more than any of my I am not basically insulting any of the normal students, but I find her or I find him more sincere. So if you are more emotionally giving him or her support, then of course he or she will be responding. That's the thing. And then N is the novum organum. This I will come later. This is basically a Latin word which comes from Sir Francis Bacon. It is basically comes from philosophy. Philosophy is something, some knowledge where you get a lot of things, a lot of subjects. So philosophy is very vast. So Sir Francis Bacon has used this term novum organum. Okay, and Later on, John Edward Sadler, you can see in the library, of course our internet is a library, J. Commoners and the concept of universal education, that is the universal learning design, which I have told you in the previous slide. That is here, you can see that I have told you this universal learning design. So this is connected to Francis Bacon, Sir Francis Bacon, and J. Comenius, who has given this concept of universal education. Now, what is universal design or the universal learning design? Because many of us will be knowing, many of us might not be knowing. So I thought that it is better to just give a nutshell that we are basically focusing here on the blended learning theory. In this COVID-19 era, there has been much instances where we find that there has been a blended learning theory, and here the power of the web is in its universality, accessed by everyone regardless of disability, is an essential aspect. So this is Tim Berners-Lee. He is the creator of World Wide Web. So he has quoted, given the quotation that basically if someone who is very much strong in this universal way of learning or the blended learning theory, etc., we find that this web is very much strong. Of course, there has been other programs. You may be asking me that what about the visually impaired children? Or what about the physically impaired children? So such programs has been developed by the computer, and we find in the instances of the West, the East as well as India is also trying to do in its own context. We can see that the IICP, Indian Institute of Cerebral Palsy, they are also having one webinar. If you are interested, you can just go to that webinar also. That is in the last week. So last week of this month, I suppose. So Indian Institute of Cerebral Palsy, they are also making such students who are basically becoming teachers in their own right. Okay, so now I am coming to Adams University. Adams University here do practice inclusive education. We are having, you can see, I have given you the picture of the building. Now this picture of the building denotes that we are having a inclusive atmosphere. We are basically having inclusive education policies as well as inclusive education as our minor subject. We have introduced other than the B.Ed, let me tell you, other than the B.Ed syllabus, which is followed by the NCT, and also we are having BA Honors in Education, MA MSc in Education. We are following the inclusive education as well as the inclusive education syllabus, which is not bound to the 50 marks. So someone has asked a question to Professor Bishnupada sir. So I am answering you on his behalf. The Jadavpur University also is not basically following that. So I am also a student of Jadavpur University. So Jadavpur University also has a separate department called Special Education. Now it has been renamed. So they are also working brilliantly and in collaboration with different institutions on this context. And I have been a student of that special education also after completing my master's and MPhil from Jadavpur University. Now, let me go to again inclusion. So inclusion is a term which expresses commitment to educate each child to the maximum extent appropriate in the school and in the classroom he or she would otherwise attend. So see, this is a foreign context. I have given you a foreign example or a Western example. This is basically a Nigerian context where we see that the inclusive education is practiced in a different way in their different contexts. Now, here also, I am also giving, I have told you that I will give you some live case studies. Previously also, I was in Koilan College of Education, and don't think that I am advertising too much. I am not here to advertise, but I have come here to deliberation, to give deliberation on certain things. So here also this NAC B plus they have got. only because inclusive education and inclusive policies have been practiced, and the doors and everything, this has been given in such a manner, it has been built in such a manner that the inclusive children, there has been a lot of children who are also a part, a special special children who has been the students of Adams University School of Education, also of Koilan College of Education. Maybe I have contributed something because I have done certain special courses on inclusive education as well as special education, along with my friend Dr. I'm also thankful to the Department of Education as well as the Department of Special Education, Jadavpur University. They have also influenced us a lot in this context. So, what may be the reasons of practicing inclusive education? All children have the right to learn together. Children should not be devalued or discriminated against by being excluded because of their disability or learning difficulty. And disabled children, they should be having school survivors demanding an end to segregation. These children should not be segregated in a different manner, and there is no legitimate reason why legitimate, because legal constitutions are there now, so we cannot separate the children who are trying to learn or who have the right to learn. They should not be segregated. So this is basically becomes legal, and children belong together with advantages and benefits. Like myself, I being a person, you being a person, we do have our sense of insecurity, sense of good, sense of bad. So why are you labeling, or rather why are we labeling them? We are also having certain disabilities, so it is not good to basically label that these children are like that, these children are like this. This is becoming a very much bad instance for us also, and especially the teachers. I think the teachers should be practicing more about the inclusive education and the inclusive context policies. Now, going to the challenges, there, of course, when I am speaking about India, there are a lot of challenges, strategies, and of course, we should be able to see that their enrollment and retention of all children with disabilities in the mainstream education children, of course, there has been a dropout. Because question has been asked to Khaleda. So there is a very much normal children gets dropped out. So of course this is a very big challenge for us. And then I don't go for the challenges, for the disadvantages. I more or less try to see the solutions. So we have to see what are some of the strategies, like reviewing implementation of existing programs, generating awareness in the general community. Then we have to see that how much enrollment and intervention is there for all the children with special needs. Then we should be from the very start, like when the child comes from the society or from his or her home, we have to see or facilitate free and compulsory elementary education for children with special needs between the age group of 6 to 14 in the mainstream education. And then ensuring a physical access for children and youth with disabilities in schools as well as in the education system. So these are some of the challenges. Basically, I can go on and on with the challenges, but it's better not to highlight the challenges or the disadvantages. Better to just highlight upon the strategies. That's why I have given the strategies more. I have basically focused upon the strategies more. I have given less thing on the challenges. But of course, dropout is a very common problem here. And here I have written a book along with my guide, supervisor, my friend, philosopher and guide, Professor Dr. Joyanto Mete, along with Mr. Pranay Pandey, who is also my colleague at School of Education, Adamas University. I have tried to give my utmost sincerity and in my utmost educative way in this book, Creative and Inclusive School. This is basically a B.Ed-centered school, B.Ed-centered book, basically based on a reference system. But I have tried to focus or highlight some of the aspects in a focused manner. And Professor Dr. Joyanto Mete and Mr. Pranay Pandey has helped me a lot in this context. And with that, I end my presentation. And with that, I would like to also make you aware as a teacher, as a community worker, and I basically like to do social services related to different aspects. I would like to tell you to take preventive measures against coronavirus. Be safe, stay safe. Be always try to be at home, and if possible, do go for blended learning, blended things. And of course, there has been certain restrictions which you should follow. And with that, I have basically given a rhyme, which is East or West, hope is the best. Take some rest, don't call any guest. Enjoy your home fest, don't have any outgoing just. This is our life-saving test. So be in your nest. This is the entire world's request, not mine, but everyone's. So with that, I am ending my presentation. Thank you so much. I am thankful also to Professor Dr. Devashree Banerjee of the Department of Education, Calcutta University. Why? Because she has been an inspiration to many and inspiration to mine as well, for basically giving me an insight about inclusive education as well as special education. Many of us are aware of the fact, as well as Professor Dr. Vishnupada Nando, Professor Mukti Nando. There are a lot of names which I should mention, along with all the faculties of the Department of Education, Jadavpur University. And I am also very much thankful to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak about inclusive education. I am basically very much elated and happy to give my deliberation on this topic, because I am very much, what should I say, I am very much comfortable speaking in this topic. So thank you, Orijit, for giving me the honor, and Sri Mithun Barik, Dr. Mondol, and the principal of the Memorial College once again. Then Pankaj, he's been also a very old acquaintance of mine. And with that, I'm ending my deliberation. And of course, since I don't believe in the lecture method, I believe in the interactive method. I would like to welcome one or two questions also on my deliberations. So if you could please ask me, I would be more than happy.
Okay.
And if it is not, any question is not there, then also thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, ma'am. As you told, so I just a questions to you that now child-centric education is going on, and there are a word we often heard, that joyful learning method. What is according to you joyful learning method in one line or briefly?
Joyful learning.
Opinion about joyful learning method.
Joyful learning is such learning, I cannot tell you in one sentence, but I am trying to make it brief as possible. Joyful learning is basically related to emotional context as well as collaborative learning. It is basically a group learning, and there is peer-to-peer group learning. If you are basically giving the learning or the group learning among the children, they should all join hands together and do that group learning. So they would be very much joyful in their own way, that they are going by the Maria Montessori method. Okay, so they will be very much happy that you give a task as the facilitator, not as the leader. You give a task as the facilitator, and they will basically learn among themselves and then finally give you the feedback. So that is that according to, and it is very much emotionally involved learning also. So that
Yes,
is
ma'am.
the joyful learning.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you for your valuable speeches. Now, I would like to request Dr. Amulya Kumar Acharya, Associate Professor, HOD, PG Department of Education, Fakir Mohon University, Orissa, India, to deliver his valuable speech. Dr. Amulya Kumar Acharya, sir.
Good afternoon to everybody. I think to speak at the end. So anyway, more than 60 to 70% participants have already left. So very few of them are still here to listen. So thanks to those participants, those who are here, and thanks to the organizer. Before going to deliberate my lecture, I would like to congratulate to the hosting organization, Secretary Rishi Aurobindo College of Education and Kultikri PTI, and Gaurav Bhui Memorial College, and all the principals and secretary, as well as the teacher in charge of the institutions. So I'm also grateful and thankful to the organizing secretary of both the institutions, and also my heartfelt thanks and greetings and my respect to the esteemed speakers and resource persons in this international webinar. So my topic I have chosen the policy perspective in inclusive education issues and challenges. As you send you the slides, I think you can. I don't want to use slides as much as at the end part, because there are many slides. It would take lots of time. Still, you can use the slides for the participants. Let them have a view. So, inclusion is a right, not a privilege for a selected few. This is the basic concept of inclusive education, as all the speakers they have highlighted about the concept and meaning of inclusive education. So inclusive education is defined as a learning environment that promotes full personal, academic, professional for all learners, irrespective of their race, class, color, gender, disability, sexual preference, learning style, and language. And the inclusive education, if you go back to the Indian context, even if at the time of our constitutions, when we wrote our constitutions, that also we have mentioned in our constitutions regarding the education for all, that is already there from different amendments. If you go back and see the different amendments, that is 86 and 93rd amendment, that is written free and compulsory education. And before that, Article 45, everybody is aware, those who are from education background, that education, free and compulsory education in the age group 60-14, irrespective of caste, creed, color, and sex and religion, the state should provide. So all these things are there. So while we are talking about the education for all, so why we are not able to achieve till date? There are so many policies, so many acts have been enacted, have been passed by the government of India and different organizations, and different states also they have their own policies and own act they have. Sorry. If you go back to the history of inclusive education, you will see hierarchically, and you can see that means paradigm set in the inclusive education. The beginning, it was era of isolation and exclusion, then era of access and inclusion. Am I audible? Hello, dear participants and organizers.
Yes,
am
sir.
I audible? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Era of access and inclusion. Okay, thank you. Era of empowerment, era of prohibition and legal discrimination, era of sympathy, era of sympathy and era of institutionalization to bring them to institutions. Era of isolated setting and segregated and special or separate education. Now we have in the particular concept, that is inclusive education and inclusive education setting. So then who comes under inclusiveness? And previous speakers, they have highlighted who are coming under the inclusiveness, who are the who are the members, who are the, you can say, the bearers of inclusiveness, that children from each and every sector, the working children, those who are working in the child labor, they are also inclusive. Children in remote and tribal areas and inaccessible areas, children with disabilities, girls living in difficult circumstances, children with HIV, AIDS and other chronic illness, children of migrant laborers, children, street children, and the socio-economic, the children those who are living under the below socio-economic status, and those who are living in that means sons and their parents are not affording. Poor IQ, are slow learners, mentally retarded, everything, the disability, when I have discussed that, everything has come, and that these are the scope of inclusive education.
Sir,
So we'll go back. Yes. Yeah.
Sir, if you say
Yeah.
next, we will do next, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Next, already I have come the third PowerPoint. I think that a diagram is there. You just change. Yes. Again. Next. Yeah, here.
Okay, sir.
So principles of inclusive education, discrimination with students. But if you say for a teacher, we discriminate at home itself. As you say, that charity begins at home. So while we are parcelling, we are giving to the better education to the many parents. They are giving better education to the son, and this is for an example, the son is sent to the English medium school, and the daughter is sent to the Bangla medium school or Odia medium school or regional medium. The son is allotted 2 or 3 tuition teachers, and daughter is allotted only 1 tuition teacher or self-study. We are discriminating till date, but we, even if we are providing many parents, not all, I am not telling, many parents, they are providing delicious food and nutritious food, and they are providing hostel facilities and residential to the son one and not to the daughter one. So all this, even if in the same classroom, the students who is answering well, who is raising hand, we are asking that one. We are supposed to be concentrated to the backbenchers or the students who is not participating actively. What is the reason behind, what is the cause behind it? We have to be very careful as a teacher. Then equal educational opportunity to all. This is in paper and pen, policy is saying, but in reality, we are unable to give equal opportunity to all. School adapt to the need of the students. The students need to adapt to the school, but we have to make the school atmosphere in the student friendly. Only few schools, they have the toilet facilities for a disabled one. Only a few higher educational institutions, they have the toilet facilities for the students. Even if most of the higher education institutions, I have worked in West Bengal also, they do not have lift, or they do not have the system for the special child to live. I have seen in my Sodhpur college more than 20 handicapped students they were studying. Their parents used to hold them and to reach in the second floor for my class. How pity it is, how difficult it is, and the parent is leaving his work. The parent is, that means taking the leave and coming to the college and sitting whole day for the help to help the daughter, to help the son. So this we are not adopting. The students, they have to adapt to our institutions, but we are not student friendly, or we are not that means facilitating equally to everyone. This is the quite a difficult task for students. This is a policy, so this is we are not able to facilitate. Then equal educational benefits for all students. Are we trained properly? No. I can. Some students I have seen, they are unable to speak properly, and what they say, what they speak, we are unable to listen clearly also. Something they are saying and we are listening something, because we are not trained. There is no orientation. There is no training for the higher education or primary education. So now only that special education BA students, they are allowed to teach in primary education or upper primary education, and even if some states they are appointing now, the Delhi NCT Delhi, they have recruited more than 1,500 special teacher, educator, special teacher in their, not contractual, not they will work in the same getting. So why not? Why our government is failed to? Because so many policies, we are speaking about the policies. Government is, we are misleading. We are far behind the reality, and we are unable to see the grassroots problem. That is the policy issue that we have to be taken care of. The students, we want inclusive education, but we hardly listen, we do not care. And if someone is handicapped, only a few teachers, or you can see many of the students, they leave the examination hall or after the class, and they never cooperate to the handicapped one or the deprived one. And the deprived one is sitting, he is unable to attend the next class in the another room. So sometimes I ask, that are you helpless? Someone you need to help you to reach another class. One blind girl, she was studying as a Bengali honor student. So many times I used to reach her in her class. She was unable to identify. As I used to have the morning classes, and she used to have the classes also in the Bengali. She was not my students, my subject students, but I have. So we need to have an app now. We need to also touch if they touch, and if there should be a virtual system that is developed in Western countries. But in our country, we don't have also app to reach in our classroom. That should be fixed in the door. That should be fixed in the classroom, and they can identify the classrooms, and also they have the quality materials for the. And that now it is the age of technology, and that what we teach, what we deliver in the classroom, that's supposed to be recorded for our students, because many students, they never attend the class. As I told you, that not only the handicapped, not only the deprived students, many students are there, they are working in the streets, they are selling the vegetables, they are working as child labor, they are not coming to the school regularly. So we supposed to give them support system, because we supposed to record interactive sessions, lectures they are prepared in the English, what we get from the YouTube or any resources. That in language is a factor. That we need to mitigate the problem, we need to that means solve the problem, that we need to develop various lessons in regional languages that should be given priority. So if you go back to I am discussing about the policy that Radhakrishna, right from the Radhakrishna Commission 1948 policy, and you can see they have given importance of this one. That based on the principle of equal freedom, equal rights to all the member, regardless of race, religion, sex, occupation, and economic status. Even if rural universities, that is the quite important point of Radhakrishna Commission, as we say, that is the Higher Education Commission, that University Education Commission, that they have given importance. You see, from that time, we have given the importance of the rural education, but still that there is not equal participation among the rural and urban students. And participation, there is a mismatch in the attendance, mismatch in the gross enrollment ratio. So even if in Mudaliar Commission, they have given the importance of the disabilities and the sex, place, race, caste, all these. Kothari Commission also, they have given that social, there should be the social segregation. They have given neighborhood school. They have given more importance to the neighborhood school at the primary stage. That also to attend in the same locality or school locality, the locality should be in the nearby to the schools, as each and everyone can attend the school regularly. Due to the distance, they should not drop out the school. That is also given importance in the Kothari Commission. And national education policy, if you go to the back to the national education policy, they have given also educational facilities for physically, mentally handicapped children should be expanded, and attempts should be made to develop integrated programs. That integrated programs enabling the handicapped children to study in regular schools. They have given importance from the national policy of 68 that we have to integrate educational program. That means there should be integration, that in general curriculum, that curriculum should be one, that we should integrate the general students as well as the handicapped students, and curriculum should be one. We should face the challenge. We should that means solve the problem of handicapped students. Then national policy for children, that is in 1974, they have also given importance to the handicapped like beggars, delinquents, that physically handicapped, emotionally disturbed, mentally retarded. They have in that policy also we have given importance. Then national policy education in 1986 also, they have given mentally handicapped and physically handicapped, and that they should be encouraged, and they should confidence should be developed, and they should enable them to face the life challenges. Their inner development and normal growth and development should be ensured. That is given in importance in the national policy on education. Then national policy for person with disability, 2006 Act also, that is also given importance to this special education or inclusive education. Mental Health Act 1987, they have given also to the mental health problem, students to the mental health problem, treatment and rehabilitation to the mental health problem. Then Rehabilitation Council of India Act 1992, that is more advanced, because act was passed and enacted for to mitigate, and that should be training should be given to the teacher educator, and training should be given to the rehabilitation of the professional and maintenance of a central rehabilitation register, and they are guiding to all stakeholders. They are guiding to all teacher training institutions of special education, and that is also more advanced. Then Persons with Disability Act 1995, they have also so many suggestions they have given. I am not going to discuss in detail, as I came to know only half an hour is given, but many previous speakers, they have spent much more time, so I don't have time to spend in detail, or that will highlight in detail. So anyway, National Trust Act is also there, that 1999. Then RT Act, that is the historic act which is enacted and passed in our constitution's right to free and compulsory education in the age group 6 to 14. That free and compulsory education and attendance and completion of elementary education, that you know, that is also another act which is also implemented nationwide, and some states are doing it their level best. Say for an example, the state like Odisha and a state like Delhi, state like Uttar Pradesh, they have appointed the special teacher educator in each and every school, but some states they have appointed in contractual basis, not as a permanent basis. So integrated education for disabled children, that is also act. Project integrated education for the disabled, that is also act. Then Jonsala is another, that means primary education, community-based primary education program that has been taken initiative by the government to marginalized group. Who are the marginalized and deprived communities? SC, ST minorities. You know that many minority students, I can tell you, I live at Odisha at present, and I have worked more than 12 years at Bengal, and I have seen for the students, they leave their studies, they drop out, and they join in the building work at Kerala and Odisha. They leave their house and they earn money and they go with the contractor of the Murshidabad or Malda districts. And you can see thousands of child labor. They are working in different states. Even if in Kolkata also, I have observed some child labor. They are working. They are lifting the bricks. They are lifting the rods and cements, all these things, and helping to the mistris, masons. So for maintaining the livelihood, if we are talking, so many schemes are there, but still we are failure, still we are far behind to achieve the target, and the inclusion is far behind. Only paper and pen policy is there, and government is not at all serious, I can say, because they are ignoring this particular part that is inclusive, which is the emerging trends, because everyone has right to live, everyone has a right to get education. If that is there, and why we are unable to achieve our targets till date, and there are so many schemes. And this scheme, another Samagra Shiksha Abhijan is also a scheme for school, secondary and higher secondary. So after that, now Sarva Shiksha Abhijan is there. District already current gone. Anyway, I'm waiting. So everyone has left from my university. I'm the only one. So anyway, district primary, only 10 minutes I will take. I won't take much. District primary education project program is there, you know, DPEP program. They have also given importance for achieving this universalization of elementary education or education for all. Then Sarva Shiksha Abhijan, that is also historic step by central government in the flagship program of MHRD to meet the challenge of inclusive education or children with special needs or CWSN, and they have also developed various learning design, learning methods, and they are giving a individual difference training. My wife also is undergone such training, because as she is a primary teacher, she has got the training because of inclusiveness. She is a primary teacher of a general school, but she has to undergo the training of inclusive education or individual difference training, ID training. So this is quite important to meet the challenge of a 21st century education system. So these are the schemes we have, but in spite of various schemes, in spite of various acts, but we have many issues, we have challenges of inclusive education. I'm just highlighting within 10 minutes, and I'm a little fast because many of are still waiting as like me from 3 p.m. So you don't have patience, and you know, I know that this is very difficult. We are good speaker, but we are not good listener. So this is the human being habits. So many are not listening at the time, I hope. So still, I hope they to spend 10 minutes more. So lack of knowledge is one of the issue. We are still we do not know. We see that we think that many of the teachers, many of the teacher educators, still they are not conversant with the terminology. That is what is inclusive education. That is lack of knowledge. Simple example, the mother is observing that the son is unable to see properly to the TV and not unable to read properly, but she is not trained or not, she is not giving importance, not showing to the doctor, or if she is missing or he is missing writing, or spelling error is found in the book or in the copy, that a mother should think that whether my son or daughter is having some problem. That we need to think. Same is the case also in the classroom. If the student is objecting, sir, I can't see you, I can't hear you, that we scold him, we give him tight, as he won't say again, rather than we never inquire what is the problem, what is the rationale behind it, why the particular student is raising voice. Is there any problem? Many students are having eyesight, they are unable to see, but still then some teachers force them to sit at the back bench. We have to harness those things. We have to be careful. We're supposed to bring them in front or in the extreme left if their height is more, that we have to be very careful. And we have negative attitudes. If someone is blind, that we don't care him. We don't give him importance. That we, as he is a special one, we need to give special special treatment. We need to give him more careful. That is lacking among the teachers, among the society. But rather than we generally what we do, we pass comments. So that is not there. That we have to develop positive attitude. Lack of motivation and interest. You know, as they are not parallel to the other one, and definitely they are having negative attitude because they are lacking something. They have the sensual problem that the sense organs, some sense organs are inactive. So that is why that we need to give more. We need to motivate them. A good teacher is a good motivator, you know. A good teacher is a good motivator. We need to motivate them properly. We need to guide them properly. We need to develop the interest them properly. That should be. And inadequate prejudice. I just giving one example. When my son, we detected my son is having some eyesight, and his friend's mother said, "You don't sit with Priyanshu." My son's friend said at home, he objected at home, he informed to her mother that Priyanshu is having some eyesight. He went to the doctor and he is wearing having spectacles, and her mother said, "You don't sit with him." So you see that having a eyesight and the mother is telling you don't sit with him. So this is the prejudice we have, that we need to clear the we need to orient the parents. We need to orient the parents. We need to give training to the parents that this is not the deficiency. This is natural, that we may have eyesight. So lack of resources. Our schools, colleges, we are lacking resources to mitigate, to help the deprived one, to help the inclusive children. That means those who are having slow learner students. We don't have resources, much resources, or special children. Lack of training, both teachers, we don't have lack of training is there, negative approach is there. Lack of physical facilities, as I told you, they have to also go by the stair. सीढ़ी चढ़ते होबे, कोनो ये नहीं, slope नहीं, सीढ़ी चढ़ते होबे. How difficult it is. Lack of funds, that we are not allocated funds. Government schools are not allocated. How they will erect, how they will construct. Lack of trained teachers, that every school, every teacher education supposed to get one special educator. Not only the school education, even if teacher education institution, they supposed to appoint one special teacher educator to orient the teacher trainees. Then social discrimination is there, that he belongs to this caste, lower caste, upper caste, this religion, that religion. That is social discrimination is still there. Even if the teacher is having a state like Odisha, a state like UP, we have acute caste system. Even if I'm giving you a simple example of my teacher, that a particular lower caste student, when he asked that he complained that government used to give the teaching learning material to the lower caste students, SC ST students. So the scale was broken. The scale টা একটু ভাঙা ছিল। যে টিচারকে জিজ্ঞাসা করলো, স্যার আমার স্কেলটা একটু ভাঙা। তারপরে টিচার কি বলছে, তুই আমাকে চেয়ে খাচ্ছিস, আবার তুই বলছিস কি গরম খাবো, আমি পান্তা খাবো না। So this was the statement of a teacher when I was in class 7th, and she cried and she went to his home and complained to the father, and he didn't attend for a week. So this was the case, this was the problem. Still we have some sorts of problem that we have in our school system. Our teachers are not oriented properly, and also our inappropriate curriculum. One curriculum, and that is not designed. Some curriculums that should be useful, that should be helpful, that for equity, that equitable, that we need to for not only to the higher group or average students, for higher intelligent students, we need to prepare the curriculum in a holistic approach. That inappropriate curriculum is there, as Professor Vishnupad Nanda has already discussed, that we have not developed any learning resources for the students. Even if teachers, we are not trained properly with how to handle those resources for special children. Next slides, I think you are not, next slides you can go, issues and challenges after that. That I am coming to the national education policy. There are so many policies went, again this NDA government, you know that since last 2 years they have so many meetings, they have so many consultative program at Kolkata also, at Patna, at Bhubaneswar, at different places, and ministers and education secretary, they were invited to discuss and give the suggestions, and after that they have sir, please, next slide, issues and challenges of inclusive education, national, yes, thank you. You just see, National Policy of Education 2020, achieve an equitable and inclusive education system by 2030. কি বলেছে এখানে যে স্পেশাল এডুকেশন জোনস ইন ডিসঅ্যাডভান্টেজ রিজন, তো ডিসঅ্যাডভান্টেজ রিজনস কোনগুলো? যেখানে আদিবাসী এলাকা, যেখানে ব্যাকওয়ার্ড এলাকা, যেখানে হচ্ছে আমাদের মাইনরিটি এলাকা, সেইগুলিতে কি করতে হবে? আমাদেরকে স্কলারশিপ ফর স্টুডেন্টস ফ্রম ডিসঅ্যাডভান্টেজ গ্রুপ দিতে হবে, জেন্ডার ইনক্লুশন গ্রুপ করতে হবে, ইনক্লুশন গ্রুপ, availability and capacity development of teachers করতে হবে। এখানে বলা হচ্ছে ইকুইটেবল এন্ড ইনক্লুসিভ এডুকেশন সিস্টেম করতে। আরেকটা স্লাইডে আমি দেখিয়েছি, দেখুন একই স্লাইডে, সেখানে বলা হয়েছে ইকুইটেবল এন্ড ইনক্লুসিভ এডুকেশন, বলেছে ইকুয়াল অপরচুনিটি টু চিলড্রেন উইথ স্পেশাল নিডস অর দিব্যাঙ্গ। এই কথাগুলো তো অনেক আগে থেকে পলিসি বলছে, শুধু কি হয়েছে আমি জামাটা পাল্টিয়ে দিয়েছি, কিন্তু মানুষ আমি ওই একই ডক্টর অমূল্য কুমার আচার্য বা মিস্টার অমূল্য কুমার আচার্য। সেম কথাগুলো আজকে যেগুলো এডুকেশন ফর অল যেখানে বলা ছিল, কনস্টিটিউশন যা বলেছে সেম জিনিসগুলিকে আমরা শুধু রিপিট করেছি, without giving importance to the basic parts, without giving priority to the problems, how to solve the problems, how to orient to the teachers and students. And you know how many schools they are visiting to the locality to attract the students. আমি দেখেছি সাউডাপুলের কাছে একটা আছে that is a special school, and also they have DLED program, special DLED program. আমি গিয়েছিলাম আমার ক্যালকাটা ইউনিভার্সিটি রিফ্রেশার কোর্স করার সময়, not remembering the name actually at present. তো আমি দেখেছি সেখানে কিন্তু অনেকগুলো স্টুডেন্টস they are doing well, কত ভালো ভালো তারা জামার এমব্রয়ডারি তৈরি করছে, কত ভালো ব্যাগ তৈরি করছে, আমাদের বান্ধবীরা যারা আমাদের কলিগরা অনেক কিনলেন। তো আমরা যদি তাদেরকে সেলফ সাফিসিয়েন্ট করাতে পারবো, এফিসিয়েন্ট করাতে পারবো, তাহলে তারা কারো উপরে ডিপেন্ড করবে না। So we need to focus those things. We need to give training to the that may challenge students, special needs students, depend the students, but practically it is in paper and pen. In my village there are more than 10 Divyanga students. They have left studies and simply they are getting 500 or 1000 rupees from the government, and they are managing their livelihood. And some of them also married, they are begging. They are begging in bus stand, they are begging in Haat and Bazaar. So এই যদি অবস্থা হয়, they have talent, they can sing well, they can knit well, they can draw well, they can prepare different constructive material, they can prepare different constructive products, useful products. That we need to orient them, we need to give them training, but in reality it is not doing that one. So separate strategies for focused attention on reducing the social category gaps in school education. Social category ছিল, কালকে ছিল, আজকে আছে, আগামী দিনে থাকবে, কারণ এটা আমরা চেঞ্জ করতে পারবো না বলে যার মাথায় তেল আছে তাকে আমরা তেল দিচ্ছি। This is the policy, and a person who is not having a home, he never get a home of a Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. But a person who is having a pakka building, he gets the home, because the poor person cannot afford 10 to 20,000 as a pocket money to the concerned person, to the who Pradhan or the engineer or to the stakeholder. That is why he won't get he never get a house. So this is the Indian context. This is the problem. This is the problem in our society. that we have oil. The person who has hair, he has no oil to put in his hair. A person who is not having hair like me, I have plenty of money to put oil in my head. So this is the condition of our education system. So we are not orienting, we are not taking care on social exclusion is there. Next slide, sir, please. I think this is my last slide. So next slide, gender ratio. You know, if a gender ratio, why male disabled only 18% and female disabled only 14%, and this is the picture. This is the picture of our society. They are coming to the school. How many of you? How government is not taking care? You see, there are different red light areas. There are slums. This is my last slide. I am ending.
Sir,
Yeah, I am ending.
Sir, time
Okay,
is,
okay.
please kindly shorten the speeches, sir.
Yes, this is my last slide. You know, there are slums. This is my last slide, sir. I am ending. There are slums. So how many teachers, whether the government used to see who are the excluded? We are talking about the inclusive education, but they are collecting the garbage with their parents, but we are not careful. But we are talking that we are very careful to the child labor. We are very careful to the exclusion society, those who are far from the education. So for that we need, we need to design classroom, and inclusive education is there. You can see my slide. I am not going through that. Size of the classroom, teaching aids, restricted of time, arrangement of light, attention to physical needs, then reforming the curriculum, simple curriculum, adequate facilities, participation in games and sports, cooperative curriculum, you know, cooperative and collaborative learning, that is very useful for inclusive education. We need to and peer group teaching, that is also a method for inclusive education. They learn from their own students. So we have to access them. We have to give them ample opportunity. Not only we are only creating policies one after the other, rather than we have to see whether the policies are properly implemented, whether the whether each and everyone meant for the policy, they are getting the benefits. That we have to ensure. That is my point. So there are so many issues, and I have discussed in next slide. You can proceed the slides. I'm not going to discuss. So peer tutoring, multisensory teaching, cooperative learning, these are the things we have to be very careful. So we have to be very careful as a teacher, as a parent, as a community member, as a teacher educator, and we have to be very careful. We have to take care, extra care to the exclusion. Those who are not getting opportunities, we have to include them. That is the basic concept of inclusive education. No one should be beyond the classroom, and no one should be deprived from the learning, and learning knows no bound. Thank you. My learning knows no bounds. This is all about my topic. So I had to conclude the topic as time was not much. So if you have any questions, queries, you can ask. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pastantu ma kaschit dupam. Let all live peacefully. That should be the motto of each and every individuals. So let live and others live also. You live happily and let other people live happily. So this should be the concept of every individual and the motto of every individual.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable speeches. Dr. Amulya Kumar Acharya, Associate Professor and HOD, PG Department of Education, Phakir Mohun University, Orissa, India. Thank you so much, sir. Now, this is for paper presentation, and due to the lack of time, we just announce some of name who deliver the presentation of their paper. Now the time for paper presentation, so I would like to announce one by one, and I request all to present their paper very brief and very to the point. So within 2 or 3 minutes. Now I would like to announce the name of Mr. Arnab Kundu, research scholar, Burdwan University. Mr. Arnab Kundu, research scholar, Burdwan University, for presenting his paper.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Welcome now.
Good afternoon to all of you. I am Arnab Kundu, research scholar, Bankura University, and I am going to present a paper entitled Role of Teacher Efficacy in Inclusive Education, a Review. I know I have to be very brief and short because only 2 or 3 minutes is allowed to me. First of all, inclusive education is the need of current time, and we must agree that inclusive education in Indian academic institutions is far below the expected levels, as my earlier speaker has said in details. That there are so many.
Arnab, please unmute the video. Okay, you continue. Arnab, continue. Arnab, please continue. Arnab Kundu, Arnab, please continue as you before. Arnab. I think there's a network issues. Arnab Kundu, the research scholar, who already started his presentation. Please, if you audible to me, please start your paper. We are just waiting. Arnab Babu. Next. Okay.
Okay. Is it okay?
Yes.
Teacher efficacy is a teacher's belief about his capacities to act effectively, and in this it denotes his self-confidence in making teaching learning effective and impressive. So far as method is concerned, I have followed a systematic survey method, and for this purpose I have reviewed many scholarly articles from very reliable sources, international reliable sources like Scopus, Web of Science, Google Scholars, etc. And so far as the finding is concerned, I have found that teacher efficacy has a very positive correlations with teachers' knowledge. His knowledge about educational inclusions, his knowledge about pedagogy, his knowledge about his disability, etc. Teacher efficacy has also a very positive correlations with teachers' training. Thirdly, teacher efficacy has a very positive correlations with situational factors like staff unity or institutional support, etc. And most importantly, the teacher efficacy has the potential to enhance the teacher's capacity to act effectively. It increases efficiency. It increases his resilience, his perseverance. At the same time, it gives him potential to work effectively. Therefore, my study reached this conclusion that teacher efficacy is a very important psychological construct that is vital to make teachers effective for the very challenging inclusive classrooms, and policymakers should take note of this so that the teacher efficacy of the teachers could be enhanced for a more effective inclusive classrooms in our country. That's all. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your present paper. And now I would like to announce the second one for presenting the paper. Ms. Aditi Vishwas. Ms. Aditi Vishwas in psychology. Ms. Aditi Vishwas. National Institute for the Empowerment of Persons with Intellectual Disabilities. ওখান থেকে Ms. Aditi Vishwas.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, yes.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, ma'am. You can start.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, for this, the weather is very bad and there is internet issue. I won't be able to show my video. So can I start the presentation?
Yes, you can start.
Yeah. First of all, I thank for this platform, and as webinar was on inclusive education, emerging issues, challenges and policies perspectives, the resource person were immensely enriching and their information was really very good. My title of the study is Inclusive Education and its Challenges for the Special Education Teachers. As we all know, as said by the speakers too, the inclusive education has been defined in the various ways that addresses the learning needs of the differently abled children. In my study, I have taken 20 special education teachers who are working in the different schools of Mumbai. It can be one of the questions that why so less sample, as the study was done during this COVID-19 situation. So I was not able to get so much of target sample, so it was restricted to 20. So I may call it, or you may call it as a pilot study too. There was a questionnaire was designed, and it was validated by special educators who were not included in this study of data collection. As we all know, that the challenges special education teachers include is that they often get some lack of support dealing with multiple disabilities, while also handling the children, handling problems in the inclusive classroom, professional isolation, and lack of support from the parents. The questionnaires items that I have included in this study is that there are 21 set of statement, in which the statement that has been included is the educational model in which they are teaching, the ratio in the school setup, how is the administration, the cross disability area of handling the children, the inclusive education practices, how they are, how the parents are either they are supportive or not, either the teachers are providing the guidance and counseling to the parents, availability of the teaching learning materials, also the use of information and communication technology in educating CWSN, and adapting the curriculum too. So as the data was collected through a telephonic interview method, and a set of questionnaire was also mailed to the targeted population for their reference, so that it becomes easy for the conversation. Another factor or variable that came into the forefront, which is not included, I won't say the variable is not included in the study, is that teachers also faced a problem while teaching the children with special needs during this COVID-19 through the online session. Coming back to the study, where the variables that has been selected, it is seen that 60% of the population of the targeted population sample that has been selected works in the resource room teaching, and if 35% of them works in an inclusive classroom setup. Also, the other statement that is included in the questionnaire, it shows that teachers are quite efficient in working with this inclusive setup too. Their administrative work with the school is also in a good hand. also the teaching learning materials that has been available. As the title suggests, is are the challenges. While I was doing the study, the conclusion and the discussion that came into forefront, the challenges were much more less, because the school setup, the administration, the TLM, the curriculum, the technology that are being given to the teachers are quite in a better mode, and very few were the negative responses that were gained from the items that when the committee will read, I think that they will be getting onto the negative responses that is available. The number of negative responses is really very less. As the other variable while interviewing the participants, I would say the sample was that, as I said, was the online teaching of the students, which was quite difficult for them, because in many parts of this Mumbai, the students, the parents are not having difficulty with the internet, also not having the smartphone. Also, it was a new skill that both the teacher and the student has to adapt while getting set into the new normal condition. So this was also a challenging task for the teachers, the special education teachers. Thank you so much, sir.
Many thanks, Miss Vishwas from Navi Mumbai, for presenting her paper. And now I announce the name of Mr. Sudeep Parikh. Mr. Sudeep Parikh, BEd student, Vishwa Bharati University, Shantiniketan, Birbhum. Mr. Sudeep Parikh, please start your paper presentation.
Yes, sir, I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Myself, Sudeep Parikh. Me and my friend Subhasis write a paper on a study on RPWD Act 2016. This act replaced Person with Disability Act 1995. This bill passed the Lok Sabha on 14 December 2016. The act became operational on 19 April 2017. This act has total 17 chapters and 1 schedule. The objective of my research is to discuss the salient features of RPWD Act 2016, to find out the weakness of RPWD Act 2016, to find out the implication of RPWD Act on inclusive education, to find out the implementation status of RPWD Act in states and UTs of India. And if we saw the salient features of RPWD Act, there we saw the reservations in the vacancies has been increased from 3 to 4% for disabled persons, and the type of disability have been increased from existing 7 to 21. And in the RPWD Act discuss about providing financial support to the person with disabilities. That is why the national state funds will be created. And the status of implementation, if we saw, there we saw the only 10 states, including Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Manipur, Meghalaya, Odisha, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, and the West Bengal have notified the rules. And only 4 states have constituted district committees. Only 5 states have constituted a state funds for implementation the provisions of this act. Only 11 states issue notification for increase the reservation quota from 3 to 4%. And my friend Subhasis is now discussing about the implications of RPWD Act on inclusive education.
Implications of the RPWD Act 2016 for inclusive education. Number 1, in the RPWD Act 2016, in the chapter 1, the definition of inclusive education, which definitely focuses on education of disabled persons by inclusive mode. Number 2, if we saw in chapter 2, where discussed equality and create non-discrimination environment, it will help to promote inclusive education. Number 3, if we saw the RPWD Act 2016, there discussed a barrier-free environment for persons with disabilities, which are also an objective of inclusive education. And number 4, the RPWD Act 2016 focuses on social security and safety for persons with disabilities. It will help to create an inclusive education environment. And at last, number 5, the RPWD Act 2016 discussed about the reservation of persons with disabilities being increased from 3% to 4%. That's why more disabled children will come in the general classroom. It will help to create an inclusive learning environment. Conclusion, RPWD Act 2016 is very relevant for disabled persons, but we observe the present implication status of this act in India very badly. Many states and union territories of India will not take initial steps for implementation of this act. So both the governments need proper steps for implementations of this act. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. We already completed a few paper presentation, you know, and you all are witness this. And now I again say that this was titled Inclusive Emerging Issues, Challenges and Policy Perspectives, and organized by jointly the Cerebral Institute of Teacher Education, Gaurav Guin Memorial College, CK Road, Paschim Medinipur, and Kultivri Teachers Training Institute of Higher Studies, Kultivri, Jharkhand. Now we are at the end of the entire webinar. So I earnestly request our Honorable Secretary of Institute of Teacher Education, Mr. Mithun Barik sir, for delivering the vote of thanks of today's international webinar.
Namaskar. Good evening, everybody. Of the present day till now, we are close attention in the midst of the international webinar on inclusive education, emerging issues, challenges, and policy perspectives. After the completion of such auspicious webinar, it is a custom to convey vote of thanks to the respected speakers, paper presenters, all participants, and other associate staffs who have been untiring efforts which are organized jointly by Department of Education, Gaurav Guin Memorial College, Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education, and Kultikri Teacher Training Institute of Higher Studies to make the program a grand success. I, Mithun Barik, Secretary of Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education and patron of this webinar, extend a hearty vote of thanks to Dr. Abhijit Roy Choudhury, Inspector of Colleges, Vidyasagar University, and Chairman of the Organizing Committee of this webinar for his kind presence and valuable speech. Secondly, I convey my heartfelt thanks to the respected and renowned speaker, Professor Vishnu Padananda, Professor, Department of Education, Jadavpur University, Dr. Khalida Ganidat, Assistant Professor, Department of Special Education, Stockholm University, Sweden, Dr. Parthita Vishwas, Head of the Department of Education, Adamas University, Barasat, West Bengal, and Dr. Amulya Bhishon Acharya, Associate Professor and HOD, PG Department of Education, Fakir Mohan University, Balasore, Odisha, respectively, for their inspiring speech in the field of education, which is suited for the particular occasion where the students of all colleges have been enriched with their curriculum structure. Thirdly, I would like to extend my special thanks to Dr. Tapan Hajra, teacher in charge of Gaurav Guin Memorial College, and chief patron of this webinar, Dr. Pankaj Kumar Pal, head of the department and assistant professor of Gaurav Guin Memorial College, and Ms. Sulagna Chakraborty, teacher in charge of Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education, are organizing secretaries of this webinar committee for their active preparation. Fourthly, I convey my thanks to Dr. Srishtidhar Bera, Assistant Professor of Education of Gaurav Guin Memorial College, and Dr. Nando Kishore Mandal, Assistant Professor of Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education, conveners of the webinar for their hearty organization of the same. I also convey my thanks to all technical supporters, Mr. Sayandi Mondol, Mr. Obik Chandra, Mr. Mintu Pal, and Mr. Rajiv Lochon Samanto, Assistant Professors of Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education and Kultigiri Teacher Training Institute of Higher Studies, who are continuously served to fruitful perform the webinar successfully. And special thanks to Mr. Arijit Sinha, Assistant Professor of Kultigiri Teacher Training Institute of Higher Studies, for conducting the entire event in such a beautiful way. And I also thanks to Ms. Sulagna Chakraborty, Mrs. Soheli Bera Khan, and Amit Mandal, Assistant Professors of Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education, for the captivating opening ceremony of this international webinar. I would like to extend thanks to registration committee members and abstract committee members who are engaged to take part their activities. I am very grateful to Mr. Mihir Kumar Barik, Honorable President of Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education and Kultigiri Teacher Training Institute of Higher Studies, Mr. Srikanto Mahato, President of Gaurav Guin Memorial College, and all other honorable renowned professors and persons of different universities and colleges who are our advisory committee members, encouraging us to complete the webinar smoothly. Lastly, I also extend my thanks and greetings to all the participating students of organizing colleges, scholars, and other students of different colleges and universities from the different part of our country. আমি এখনো লাইনে ম্যাডামকে দেখতে পাচ্ছি, ডক্টর পার্থিতা বিশ্বাস। ম্যাডাম নমস্কার নেবেন। ম্যাডাম যখন থেকে প্রোগ্রাম শুরু হয়েছে তখন থেকেই আমাদের সঙ্গে আছেন। ম্যাডামের ঐকান্তিক আমাদের সঙ্গে সব সময় সহযোগিতা করে যাওয়া, ম্যাডামকে অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ। গোটা প্রোগ্রামেই ম্যাডাম ভীষণভাবে আমাদেরকে সহযোগিতা করেছেন, ম্যাডামকে অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ। এই করোনা পরিস্থিতিতেও আমরা এই ইন্টারন্যাশনাল সেমিনারগুলো অর্গানাইজ করতে পারছি। আমাদের পাশে যে প্রফেসররা আমাদেরকে প্রতিনিয়ত সহযোগিতা করছেন, প্রত্যেককে, সেই বিশিষ্ট মানুষদেরকে প্রত্যেককে আমি অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ জানাই এবং আশা করব এই করোনা পিরিয়ডে সকলেই সাবধানে থাকবেন, ভালো থাকবেন, এই আশা করে আমি আমার বক্তব্য শেষ করছি এবং এখানেই আমাদের আজকের ইন্টারন্যাশনাল ওয়েবিনার শেষ করছি। এই বলে আমি আমার বক্তব্য শেষ করলাম। নমস্কার। নমস্কার।
Thank you, our Honorable Secretary, Mr. Barik sir, for his valuable speeches. And now we have completed our entire webinar. Again, thankful to Gaurav Queen Memorial College Education Department and also organizing committee of Rishi Aurobindo Institute of Teacher Education and our Kultigiri Teachers Training Institute of Higher Studies. Today's international webinar is completed. Stay blessed, stay happy. Thanking all. Good evening.